All right, thanks for tuning back into the Minutemen Initiative. We are going to be starting a mini-series on reconnaissance and specifically talking about some sub-disciplines within reconnaissance. We're going to start this conversation or this series with rural reconnaissance and all the details with that, how it's done operationally, all the specifics about how to set up, how to support it, even some more niche details like fire support teams, quick reaction force, and even running multiple sites. So very basic, just kind of an overall structure of how to do this and how to manage it in a rural setting. And then in future episodes, we're going to get into some of the other disciplines like urban reconnaissance, vehicular, so on and so forth. So for this episode, focusing on rural, Stephen really leans on his past experience in recon while with the U.S. Army. So lots of valuable information to go over and incredibly applicable to the modern Minuteman mission in our opinions. So we really hope you enjoy the information. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side.
Dude, when I was in JRTC, I was tasked with being in the surveillance site pretty much the entire time I was there. So it was like I think 2.5 week period of us being out in the field. Might have been, yeah, it was right around there. I'm not sure, but it was a long time. I know that for me to be living in a serve site, and I was
For that whole time?
Yeah, I was in a serve site that whole time, which later in this episode you'll learn to understand how crappy that actually is. And I was out there. We luckily had two different points that we were kind of watching. I think the first spot, actually they might have been both route reconnaissance. So the first one was at a route that we were watching for. I think someone was doing an area reconnaissance up farther up, like the zone that we were in. Someone was doing an area reconnaissance, and we were kind of doing like a route reconnaissance. And we were there for right around a week in that one, and then the next one we were there for, we kind of re-upped, and I probably got in that one for another whole week, probably when it was all said and done, including movement and stuff like that. That's where your other like half week was built in, was just movement. So, but in the second one, we weren't able to dig in, so we did kind of a surface site, and we got in this little creek bed that had dried out in Louisiana, and we were hanging out in there kind of looking at this roadside, and you got your cadre that follow you around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, one of the cadre guys was like, hey, check it out, there is alligators that cruise through that creek often, just letting you guys know. Like, they told our hide site that, so our hide site warned us about it, so we're just kind of like, whatever. But at this point in the mission, I'm tired, dude. I haven't slept much like the entire time. I haven't eaten much. I haven't drank probably nearly enough water, and I'm just worn out. We've been moving. I'd probably had like I'd say at least 115, 120 pound ruck for the entire mission. We, like you get the like laser tag the systems there, so we lost one of our team leaders like when we were it was like right after we had done an FLS clearance. We started jumping in. We did an FLS clearance, so field landing site clearance, and then we did like a patrol base, and we got ambushed in that patrol base, and he got hit, I guess. So we lost him. I had to take all his sensitive gear, so then I had just a ridiculously heavy ruck for the rest of the mission. But
why were you guys at JRTC anyways? Was it pre-deployment?
It was pre-deployment, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Miles gear, that's what it's called.
Yeah, Miles gear.
Yeah.
So anyways, I finally get in this thing. We're doing like our rotation. I was supposed to be sleeping at the time. I think I was in there with, actually they might have like brought that dude back to life.
What?
Later. Like, cause you go through, I don't know how it works because I never got killed while I was in JRTC, but they like bring you back to like, even to like almost like a morgue, I guess. Like they, not like they actually do, but they have like people that like work on like the bodies.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
let those guys work as well there. I don't know, but I never had to do it.
I didn't die either. Yeah, when I went to JRTC.
And he went and did it. His name was Sergeant Bandy, but he was an interesting character for sure. But I think they respawned him on our re-up, which is random, just so he didn't miss out on all the training. And he might have gone into that serve site with me with another guy. So I think I was in there with 2 sergeants, and it was me. And I don't remember. Maybe it didn't go that way, but I feel like he was there for some reason. But for whatever reason, I guess I was just like, I kept falling asleep on my back and snoring like crazy. And dude, they kept waking me up and being like, yo, you gotta roll over on your side. And I don't know why. I don't know if I was just like hallucinating or like just in a weird place and a weird state of mind, but I was so paranoid. And I don't like, I was like, what the heck? Why did these guys want me on my side so bad? Like, are they trying to get access to my butt, dude? Like I thought they were screwing with me, dude. So at one point, and you know how it is, like,
Yeah.
I know this is a training environment, but I'm absolutely destroyed, like mentally, physically, and just emotionally, dude. I'm just over it.
Yeah.
And dude, at one point, they wake me up, like, this is after like the 3rd or 4th time, like, yo, you gotta roll over on your side. I was probably sawing logs like crazy, dude. I don't know, because I wouldn't like, I would love to get their side of it, but
Yeah.
I just turn over and I go, dude, why you guys want me on my side so bad? You guys trying to rape me or something? Like, what's going on? Which, you know, looking back is like such an overreaction, but like, and dude, they started dying of laughter. I mean, obviously we're being quiet, but like,
Yeah.
dude, I look back on, like, they're talking to me afterwards, and I was like, dude, I don't know, dude, I need sleep. They're like, yeah, we just let you sleep because we're like, dude, has this dude like not slept this entire time? And one of the guys had been with me as well the whole time. His name was Cruz. I think he was a sergeant too at the time. But he was like, yeah, dude, because he was out there. He knew. Like, he was like, yeah, dude, we've been roughing it for weeks now, me and him. And all the other guys that were in the serve site in the previous serve site weren't in the serve site this time around. They got put in the hide site, so they got to rest up and relax. So,
dude, you just got the short end of the stick.
I always did, because at the time for my squad, I was one of the specialists that had the most experience, so they always liked to pair me with in the serve site, because I was complimentary help for whoever the team leader was. So
right.
That was kind of how they were doing it a lot. I pretty much always was in the serve site for that reason, and I just had so much time doing it, so it was like I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
It was easy. I was still the 249 gunner at the time, so yeah, that's just the way it went.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it was interesting. I look back on that, I'm like, dude. And then we ended up moving out of there, doing like a 12-mile ruck afterwards, and got put in a patrol base. And they were like, hey, we're going to do 50% security. And I was like, heck yeah, like, I'm going to get some sleep. And they're like, oh, change of plans, guys. If you're a saw gunner, we're going to position you guys over this way because we feel this is like the highest chance of enemy hitting us from this direction. So, and you guys are going to be 100% security, so you guys will be up all night. So then I ended up having to stay up all night again.
No.
In the patrol base. Dude, I don't know how much hours of sleep, but like, it wasn't much for that entire 2.5 week span. Like, it was like rough, dude. I remember when they were like, all right, index. I was just like, I just wanted to melt away, dude.
Were you starting to see things?
I don't know if I was seeing things, but I was definitely like, I don't remember that very well. Like, I remember kind of getting woken up and being frustrated at it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I kind of remember me yelling like, dude, you trying to rape me or whatever?
Yeah.
But like when I said it, is like, I came to like I realized what I had said, and I was just like, whoa, that was weird. You know what I mean? But like, I don't remember putting that together like in my head.
And they just started dying of
Yeah,
laughter.
they were dying of laughter. They were like, what the?
Oh, man, that's funny.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Well, what are we getting into today?
Well, I kind of gave a little bit away, but we're getting into more reconnaissance. We did a part 1 and part 2 way back, kind of in the beginning of the Minutemen initiative.
Yeah.
And we feel that I think it was great that we jumped into it back then, because it's such a crucial skill for the modern Minutemen. But, and I think you agree as well. I think we both agree that's why we did it. But I feel like we didn't have enough episodes to kind of cover some of the smaller details, like as far as just patrolling
just
and
basic stuff.
Yeah, basic infantryman skills, where I feel like we were trying to cover way too much in those 2 episodes back then. So now I think revisiting it after we have covered some more of that type of stuff, it's going to make a whole lot more sense for our listeners, especially people who have listened to us, like have listened to all our episodes.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a more well-rounded understanding of like basic infantryman skills and how that carries over to the reconnaissance world.
Yeah, because they're needed. You can't just get into the specifics of reconnaissance without understanding some of that basic stuff.
And some of the stuff you're just not going to know until, like, you can understand the information behind it, but until you go out and do it, you're not going to truly know how to do it either. That's like land navigation, things like that. Like, you can know all the information on land navigation, but until you go out and actually practice it, you're not actually truly knowing how to do it. So,
yeah.
And you can only do so much through podcast form on that type of thing. So, we'll get into a little bit of that today, but not a ton. Just kind of basics.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those earlier episodes, the part 1 and part 2, I think if I remember right, they're titled Reconnaissance Basics Part 1 and Reconnaissance Basics Part 2. And I would even say it's like kind of a prelude to reconnaissance. Like we got into like packing list stuff.
Yeah, the second one covered packing list type stuff. So we're not going to get into a whole bunch of gear. We'll get into more specialty equipment in these episodes, but like we've done so much episodes on, you know, gear related stuff that lean into that in order to inform yourself on how to pack for this mission type.
Like honestly, the Minuteman layout series would probably be good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good roundabout, just general, you know, detailed coverage on kind of gear for the modern Minuteman, and that's going to immediately translate into this.
Yep. So go back. If you haven't listened to the Reconnaissance Part 1 and Part 2, we're going to cover some of that same information. A little bit less like, I don't know. We were trying to cover, like I said, we were trying to cover way too much. We were trying to get into some like patrolling skills and whatnot in that episode, which is it's involved because you have to do it in order to get to where you're going in your mission. But just go back and listen to those ones and then come listen to this series because it's going to be a multi-part series.
Yeah.
So this one today, we're going to go over rural reconnaissance. This is going to be out in like the wood line. Something that I did a lot of in my time in the military. And then also we've continued to do kind of as like a Minuteman focused training. So we're going to break this down and kind of just get right into it. So the first thing you're going to want to cover for sure before you start doing this for real and for training is like a pre-mission brief.
Yeah.
So I like to, the easiest way for us to do a pre-mission brief, we always talk about METTC, and this is a great way to just integrate that in, and it's pretty simple. So, your mission. So, what is METTC, I guess, really quick? Mission, enemy, terrain, troops, teams, or
time,
and civilian considerations. Yeah. Yep. I'm drawing blanks over here. So, for a mission, what are you going out to do, I guess? You know, like what's the goal? What's your priority intelligence requirements? So PIR, you'll hear that in like military terminology, PIR. That's priority intelligence requirements. And like what type of reconnaissance are you doing? So are you doing area? Are you doing route? Are you doing zone? We can get into that really quick too, just so, because we did cover that in the other one, but I'd like to cover it a little better and a little bit more simplified because I feel like I didn't do a great job explaining that before. So your route reconnaissance is obviously any routes, so that can be roads, railways, anything that you have people traveling on. So, and that could be even footpath. It could be a route. Your area reconnaissance, so that's going to be more centralized on like a structure or multiple structures.
airfields.
An airfield, yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be huge. It could be small too. It could be a singular building. Your zone reconnaissance is going to be like more like in a massive area, like
a region, or
yeah.
Okay.
Like, hey, we don't know much about this zone, so we're going to go in and we're going to figure out like the road systems in it, what kind of buildings are there, what kind of, whatever, weaponry, enemy troops, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be your zone reconnaissance. That's way more simple than I broke it down last time. So we're going to stick with that, because that's pretty much what it is. So that'll be pretty much your mission. So, and if you don't know anything about what you're going into, that's fine. That's your mission is, hey, if we're doing a zone reconnaissance, we're going to figure out what it is. We don't really know what our priority intelligence requirements are. They're basically, hey, figure out as much as you can about this area without getting caught.
Really quick, I want to just talk about METTC for just a second, because it's trendy right now in this industry or in this community to kind of like try to define what METTC should be used for. And it's been kind of a reoccurring thing, and I see like a lot of big names are like, listen, METTC is, this and that, and it should be used for this, and it's this, and like if you hear somebody ever say METTC, then they don't know what they're talking about, and all this just honestly nonsense. METTC is it overused? Yeah, and I think it's overused by people that don't actually break it down and understand it. But it's an excellent, for one, it's an acronym that is just easy to remember, METTC. And so I think you have a lot of prior service guys that just say it, like METTC, and they don't explain it, which that's the problem, and that's why we are going to break it down and explain it. But it is useful, and I want to make that clear that it's a very useful tool to use for not only planning, but going throughout your, as you're on mission and your mission develops. There are important key points within your plan that can be constantly revisited, and they're all things that can evolve at any given point. So it is very important to use and understand. And, I think also it's a nice, it's a pretty simple tool, and you can absolutely make plans using it. I mean, we're going to walk through it and explain it.
Yeah. But I think it's actually because it's so well known. That's why I ended up using it for our pre-mission brief.
Yeah.
Because it's so used, and why not use it for what it was initially intended for was, yes, it's used for on-the-fly decision-making as well throughout a mission.
Yeah.
But it also can set you up for success pre-mission as well.
Yeah. And it is, the military doesn't primarily use this for planning. There's 5-paragraph op orders. There's all this stuff that goes into it. But I think for the modern Minuteman, that's not necessary. Use common sense. Look at what you got going on, and make your plan. Have your justifications of why you need to do what you need to do, and then use this as a tool to test against that and to make sure you've thought of everything.
Yep.
Because within METTC is, there's other things beyond that you need to think about and prepare for. But that's very dependent on where you live, but all these things I'm starting to even say, where you live, who you're fighting, those all are covered as considerations under METTC. So I think it's very valuable to use as long as you actually understand how to use it. And that's kind of what we're saying. So Stephen already started talking about the mission in great detail and talking about priority intelligence. But even more simple than that, and he already said it too, but your mission, you need to understand exactly what it is and what you need to accomplish.
Yeah. And
that's the first thing you figure out. So I just wanted to give that disclaimer, because there's this weird, what's the word I'm looking for here? There's a bunch of preconceived notions, or there's just weird opinions around METTC right now, and there's a lot of pushback against it. And I think that's silly. It's a good system.
Yeah.
And it's not like the end all be all, but it's very, very simple. And it's something that can be constantly re-referenced.
I think too many people, especially from the training aspect, aren't starting with a pre-mission brief. So that's why I like to emphasize, like, hey, even if you're just going out to work on the skill, do this. Go out, brief your guys, let them know, hey, your team's going to be on a route reconnaissance for this team who's going to be on an area reconnaissance. The area reconnaissance is going to be watching a set of buildings to let us know what's going on. These guys are on a route to be a warning, 5 miles up the road if we got enemy resupply or whatever coming into the AO, so area of operations. So I think just like obviously that's very militaristic, and the reconnaissance doesn't always have to be used for militaristic skills, but we're covering it in more of a setting just because that's kind of the worst case scenario. Yeah, reconnaissance is easier when all you're doing it for is like disaster relief, or it's the worst case scenario is you actually have someone out there that's trying to kill you. So that's why we're covering it in this vein.
Yeah, because you can always strip it down and dial it back.
Yeah.
Not kit up and go out and do it just like foot based, and we'll cover some of that in future episodes.
Yep.
But yeah, it's again, these are all considerations that can be made with METTC. So that's why we're using it. And there absolutely, like, we'll do future episodes on like true. I would like to do a whole episode on like how to plan an operation, and it would cover way more. But I think for like your quick down and dirty reference tool, it's hard to beat METTC. And like Steven said, it's something that you can use even if you just go out to do like, let's just go shooting today, like practice thinking about these things and applying them to your actual activities that you're doing. It gets you good at thinking critically and logistically as well.
Yeah, and seeing how those things go to plan, how well it goes as far as like timelines and things like that. That'll give you a good idea on how realistic is your expectations prior to the actual event or training or mission or whatever. All right, so moving right along. Obviously, METTC can be applied to all types of whatever you're doing, but we're applying this to like reconnaissance type skills, rural reconnaissance. So your enemy, is there an enemy? There may not be an enemy. So if you know there's not an enemy in the area, then obviously that's going to get briefed. If there's a potential enemy in the area, that's going to get briefed. Capabilities. So what do they got? Do they have small arms? Do they have
tanks?
Yeah, exactly. Numbers. How many people you're expecting to be in the area. This may be all ballpark numbers. You may not know for sure, depending on how much prior reconnaissance you have on the area. Resources. So do they have resupply? Do they have QRF not too far away? Do they have air assets? Anything like that. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. And this can go much farther on. Like, if obviously the more you know about them, the better off you're going to be. So if there's something that's a red flag or concern, it's like, okay, you're going to bring that up in a briefing. Like, hey, check it out. These guys have mortars. Like, we know that for a fact. So be on your A game. If you guys get compromised, you better get out of there.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So terrain. So terrain's going to cover a lot of things. Obviously, route briefing. So that's where you can throw in your route briefing. Like, okay, we're going to go in this area. We're going to use vegetation and mountainous terrain to kind of conceal our position all the way on the movement. So you're going to pick the best course of action as far as where you're not having to cross many roads, because any kind of LDAs, so linear danger areas, is going to be a potential compromise for your team. So less roads you have to cross, the better. You got to think about water crossings, things like that. Mm-hmm. Is it even capable to cross the water there?
Yeah.
If you can't, you may have to have alternate plans as far as routes in case you do get caught up in a draw or whatever. So all things that you got to think about. And this is where the land nav skills are going to have to come into play, because understanding how to move and not get lost is obviously important.
Yeah, and also not to move yourself into like a dangerous situation. Like, if you do end up having to cross a river that's where it's 20 degrees outside and it's rushing, you know.
Yeah.
It's like that's not a good situation.
Yeah, you're also going to try to avoid open areas, so like fields or anything like that. You want overhead coverage if you can, pretty much at all times. So if you can't do it, you can't do it. There's ways to cross fields. I'm not going to really get into that here, but there's ways to do it. It's not great, though, so it sucks.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Spread out, I guess, and move, you know, with good security. This is where we're going to cover rally points, objective rally point, and emergency and evacuation point. So this is important to have pre-planned, because if an emergency happens, everyone can be on the same page, especially if you're like talking about getting seriously separated, like you're talking like individuals getting separated. So if everyone's on the same page, then there's more likely chances of everyone getting back to, you know, rendezvous. So
yep.
If you don't have that, then good luck.
Yeah, no, you need to have this stuff. Like, if you're going out without contingency plans and, you know, E&E plans and stuff like that, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure. Because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole concept of reconnaissance is that you're going in with a small and light force to observe something.
Yeah.
And there's you got a high potentiality of being outnumbered and outgunned in many cases. So you absolutely have to have some plans in place to beat feet if you need to and get out of there.
Yeah, you go in hoping that, I mean, not hoping, but you go in with all intentions of not being compromised, but don't go in without a plan.
Yeah.
Obviously having timelines set up within those individual evacuation points. So hey, if you don't get there within a certain amount of time of the event, whatever that may be, you getting compromised, you getting shot at, whatever it is, then we're going to have to keep moving, because you don't want to sit at a point waiting for someone if they're dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have another point that has another timeline. So that way they know, hey, I didn't get to that point in time. If you get separated, hey, I didn't get to that point in time, but I know if I can make it to this next point, then I can re-get with the group. So you have multiple points planned out within the evacuation plan with timelines set.
Mm-hmm.
So that way if someone gets way off track because they bounded like in a crazy direction because it was the only option they had, yeah, maybe they can't get to that other point because it's too far away at that point, but maybe the next point they can kind of get to easier from that position. And it doesn't always work out that way. Hopefully, you know, you gather your guys, and if you have the capabilities of using radios, obviously just understand what your enemy can do with radio signal and things like that. So, but that makes things a little easier if you are able to use radio.
Yeah. If you're fighting a more conventional element of some kind, or you're dealing with somebody that's got, you know, a more modernized and conventional fighting force, then assume they can hear you and intercept your communications, because they probably can.
Yeah. So getting into rally point and objective rally point really quick, just because your rally points are going to be just points that are dictated along the route. That could be like, hey, rally point alpha is going to be at this river that we're not sure if we're going to be able to cross. That's just so that way your whole team kind of knows where you're at along the movement. And hey, this is where our contingency route can be at, or whatever. Your ORP, your objective rally point, is going to be probably like closer to like we're on the objective.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be like somewhere that you potentially set up a patrol base, which we'll go over here in a second. But that'll be your objective rally point. So next is troops available. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cover anything else in there?
No, yeah. I mean, you can see how, just by hearing even just the planning alone, you can see why we think reconnaissance is such a good skill and ability to understand for the modern Minuteman, because it's very guerrilla tactics, small unit tactics based. It's all about being, you know, undetected. You know, being small is good. You know, in this situation, and you're able to, if done right, you're able to find out a lot about something else.
Yeah, and even up to this point, even if you weren't going to do a reconnaissance, maybe you're going to do a hit on a building for whatever reason, you need to go gain access to this building.
Yeah.
You're doing all the same stuff that we've covered already at this point to get there. It's the same exact steps.
Yep.
And honestly, it's the same steps almost all the way to like the actual ending of like setting up your sites. As far as getting there, and you're going to gain reconnaissance of the building prior to entering regardless. You're not just going to enter a building without having any sort of information on it. So
yeah.
But yeah, anyways. So
troops available.
So this is when you're going to kind of dictate, okay, Jacob, you're going to be in the serve site. I'll be in the hide site. John, you're going to be in the MSS,
Yeah.
Just throwing out random names.
John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, dude.
Yeah. There you go, dude.
His name is my name, too.
Yeah. No, dude. So this is when you're going to kind of figure out who's going to be where. So you're going to pick out your serve site guys, your hide site guys, and if you're running an MSS, which is not needed, if you don't want to run an MSS, you don't need to. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but if you are going to be running an MSS, this is you're going to pick your guys in the MSS. MSS is mission surveillance site, or, mission support site. Depends on how you want to look at it, but since it's a surveillance mission, we're going to call it mission surveillance site for this one. Your serve site just stands for surveillance site, and the hide site's just a hide, basically. These are the exact same ways that we set it up in the reconnaissance part 1 and part 2. So if you've listened to those, it's going to make more sense, probably. Your team size. So selecting what size team you have within each team. So serve site, hide site, and MSS. This is going to be very dictated on the size that you have, like how many people you have. Like if you don't have very many people, then your teams are going to be small, or you may just not run an MSS and just run a hide site and serve site, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. You honestly don't need the MSS unless you're dealing with a larger element. So if you have like a platoon size element, then yeah, you can run an MSS at that point. Then it makes sense. We'll kind of get into the jobs of each site later on, and it'll make more sense then. Mm-hmm. So other reconnaissance teams that are going to be working in the area. So that's going back to that platoon size element. Do you have multiple hide site, serve site in the area? Do you have multiple serve sites in the area? Are you running 2 serve sites off of 1 hide site, which is possible as well? You can kind of structure this whichever way you feel is necessary. The hide site in that situation would be more like an MSS, and you're running 2 separate serve site teams. Is kind of what they're doing at that point, because that's going to be your mission surveillance site. They're going to be running multiple teams with multiple information coming in. So sniper teams, do you have sniper teams on site or support by fire teams? And this is going to be important to know because you understand that you have a support by fire team, whether through your sniper teams or through a gun team. So gun teams can look at multitudes of ways, and your modern Minuteman kind of loadout. It could be, rifles, like more like battle rifles, or even ARs with heavy barrels that you can just run at like a more rapid rate, I guess, of fire. We haven't gotten into a whole lot of that, but we will cover that eventually in the podcast. Yep. So
stay tuned.
Yeah. And some of this stuff we will cover in more depth in other podcasts. I know I'm kind of just skating over some stuff, but I think if you listen to this podcast and you're willing to stick around to find out. So, and then like QRF, do you have a quick reaction force that's capable? A lot of times, if you do, you're going to put your QRF with your MSS if you have it. So this is looking like a lot of numbers right now. So some of you guys that are listening to this, you're like, man, I just don't have the numbers to do it. Go to our Sniper Cell podcast, because that is going to be where you can run. You can still implement a lot of these skills, but as far as like for your 2 to 3 man teams, go to our Sniper Cell podcast, listen to that, and that's going to be where you guys run.
Yep.
Because
it's going to be your lane.
Yeah. This is going to be for your larger groups, what we're talking about here.
And you can shed some of these positions. Like because when you start talking about all of these different roles, your troops available is going to have to be, dozens and dozens.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's lots of people. It's like,
but if you have it, I think it's very smart to, so if you have enough guys that you have multiple serve sites out, so two serve sites and 2 or 1 hide site and then MSS, I think it would be smart to set aside a QRF team for those serve sites other than putting out a 3rd surveillance site. So
Okay.
yeah, you have the numbers to put out a 3rd, but I would almost hold those as like hey, just in case, we're going to have these guys that can go help out if one of these guys gets compromised.
Mm.
I don't think that's a bad idea. So that's all I'm saying. So if you have the numbers, setting aside a security element to like help out if something goes not like you planned, basically.
Right.
And there's not much you're going to be able to do anyways with that team, because it's not like we're going to be outnumbered more than likely in this situation. So it is what it is. So, time. Does that make sense for troops? Do we need to cover anything else? All right. So time. When the movement starts, when the expected time on target is, and evacuation time. So, obviously some of this is going to be estimated, but you want to have, you are trying to shoot for those marks. Like if you're the team leader that's running the movement out, you're trying to hit your times that are allotted. So that's important, because then everyone kind of is in a better understanding, especially if you're dealing with like more administrative type work. Like you actually do have an MSS. That way they can kind of track where everyone's at roughly. Mm-hmm. And then civilian considerations. Who else is in the area? That's going to be important. Are they going to be more in favor of your group of guys, or are they going to be more in favor with the opposing force? That's going to be important to know as well if you know it. I guess that's all I got on that.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's it's also just a good way to pay attention to just the everyday movement of the populace too.
Yeah.
Which from the modern Minuteman perspective, it's in your community. So hopefully you have a good rapport with your community. If you've done your due diligence, you should have a good relationship with them. So
yeah,
and you should, your ideals should, for the most part, align with your local community. It's not always the case, it could very much be the opposite, but yeah, that's the kind of stuff you're thinking about for that civilian consideration. And then also they're civilians, so you never want to sacrifice your own community for your success or for your protection or anything like that.
No, definitely not. Yeah. So anyways, that's your pre-brief. Obviously, you can add a whole lot more there if you want to. Yeah. That's super simple. And honestly,
it's just to get you thinking about it. Like a lot of people ask questions about, how to prepare for something, and there's a lot more that goes into preparation. And honestly, take your time with it and develop your own procedures for planning something. I mean, that's a good tool to like test against your plan, like we've talked about. But if you've got a something that works and your group really connects with that and flows with that, then do it. Like I said, in a later episode, I'd like to do a logistics and planning, operational planning episode. And we'll try to do it from like that Minuteman perspective if we can, but I think that'd be very beneficial. But not everything needs to be done like the military did it. And I think that's like, that's kind of the problem that I see is that, and in fact, it shouldn't be planned like the military plans it. I mean, I think there's an importance to coming up with your own planning decisions. but I really like METTC as a tool to test your plan, and also kind of help get you on the right track. Because once you start, even just Steven talking through it, I'm sure if you've been engaged and paying attention to it, it's like you can start to think like and apply your own situations and think like, okay, so, oh man, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that'd have to be, oh man, this too. Like you can kind of start adding your own pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
And realizing how valuable it is. And then that helps and better inform your plan that you should already have. So, because like I said before, you got people that are like, well, that's not how METTC is necessarily used. And it's like, dude, we used it like that all the time. Like when you're in the field and you're expedient, or like you need to, especially on the enlisted side, honestly, I think it's a lot of guys with officer experience that are like, you must have a 5-paragraph op order. And it's like, dude, come on. Like, yeah, we're roughing it in the field right now. Let's chunk this stuff out. That stuff's important. I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah.
But it's very important, especially for when you're implementing a lot of logistics, like air support assets and, follow-on units.
But you don't have that in the...
Yeah, you don't. So it's, again, not everything...
I feel like METTC is more applicable...
to small unit stuff.
To small unit stuff anyway, so...
I agree. Because not everything is a... we're not able to plan like or operate like a conventional fighting force. We're just not.
Yeah.
We're not. So, and we shouldn't. I don't think we should. I think it's very close-knit, community-based. The ability to operate fast and light. Like, I think that's that light infantry skill area, or that light reconnaissance, like that's a way to look when you're thinking more kinetic, response, like, actually fighting and stuff. Again, that's all that fighting and all that side of it might not even be possible. You might have to lean on more passive engagement stuff like reconnaissance. So,
yep.
Anyways, just kind of buttoning that up there, but yeah, that's a place to start. But come up with your own, like, use it as a good kind of launching pad, and start to develop your own procedures and actually practice planning things, because it's really important, and you get better and better at it the more you do it.
Yeah, most definitely. So the actual movement, your movement to your objective rally point, we're going to get into that really quick. This is all going to be pretty brief because a lot of this is just patrolling basics, and we have covered that in other episodes, but we'll get into that. So if you do have an MSS, they may move with the hide and serve team for a certain distance of time. They may just move separate. It depends on where they're going to get set up and stuff like that. So terrain's going to be very dictated on where you want to put your MSS team, because you're going to want to be able to, if you are going to use radios, which if you're not using radios, there's no reason to run an MSS. So if you're running directional antennas back to your MSS, that's the only reason you'd ever run an MSS. Otherwise, just run a hide serve site team, and the hide site team is just collecting all the information and holding it and bringing it back whenever the mission's done. If you are trying to communicate back with information to the MSS, then that's when it makes sense. So position your MSS in a spot in terrain that you can run a directional antenna from wherever your hide site's going to be at, if you have multiple hide sites.
Is it possible to do, like, if you don't have, or you're too worried to use directional antenna stuff, is there a way that you know of to use, like, hardline communication, or is that not a thing?
That would be something I'd have to look at. I have no idea.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. I just thought of that just now. That'd be a super long cable, but...
From the MSS to the hide site?
No, from the hide site to the serve site.
Oh. I mean, that would be more doable than... I thought you were saying the MSS. I'm like, dude, that's like miles, dude.
No.
Usually.
I'm saying if you were only running a serve site, hide site configuration.
Oh.
I didn't know if that was something that's ever done.
And we'll get into that here in a second. So
yeah.
I think if you're worried about potential radio waves getting picked up and just don't use your radios. Just, I'm not saying not have radios. I think it's still smart to have them regardless, because if you absolutely need them, then if the risk or the outweighs the risk, I guess.
Yeah.
So like, hey,
the risk reward ratio.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're just like, man, I feel like I have to go comms up and figure this out in order to get through this, then at least you have it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like necessarily just bad. I will say that depending on who you're who the force is, they may just absolutely block out all your radio signals anyway. So it's like just jam.
Yep.
All the frequencies. So if that's the case, then you don't have them. So it is what it is. We're back to smoking arm signals, dude. But anyways, so yeah, you're going to want to position your MSS in a smart place. So what I mean by that is your antenna, your directional antenna, there's going to be certain terrain will block signal. So if you can stay like in if you have like a valley or something that runs along a whole distance that connects in, then you can push your signal through that valley, then you're going to have a better chance. So just understanding terrain, and I'm going to get into that here in a second, because not only is that important for your radios, it's also super important for movement, just not getting seen. We kind of talked about this with Skullduggerus, talking about using terrain to hide your movement. It's going to be the same for larger teams than just like sniper teams. So you're going to use the same philosophy, veg blocks, things like that. A lot of that stuff you're going to be able to see on a map, but understanding how to read a map is super important, because if you don't know how to read a map, then it's not going to do any good for you. So,
right.
Really quick on maps, your major terrain features are going to be hill, valley, ridge, saddle, and depression. So we're not going to get into that because I can't tell you what all that stuff looks like. I could try, but it would be just more confusing than not. So go to YouTube, watch some videos on it if you don't know what those are, so you can figure out what those are and how to look at them on a map. Easy way to remember that is Hidden Valley Ranch salad dressing. Classic, dude. Classic, just Joseph Infantry memory right there. So hill, valley, ridge, saddle, and depression. Your minor terrain features are going to be draw, spur, cliff, cut, and fill. Okay? So understand what those look like so you can understand how to move on a map, and also how to set up radios so they can communicate. And go out and play with this. Like, go out and be like, hey, check it out. This looks like it's a valley that runs through this area. I think I can push radio through this. So I'm going to try it. We'll get on either end of it and see how far you can push it, versus like trying to go through a hill, like from one side of the hill to the other side of the hill. And it's like, okay, yeah, that doesn't work as well, depending on the size of the hill. Like if the hill is actually a mountain, like where we're at in Alaska. Yeah. Because hills look like a hill can also be a mountain. It's one of those weird things.
Right.
It's always weird. It's like, yeah, dude, they don't have any separate classification for mountains. It's just a steep hill.
Yeah, it's just way more topography lines.
Yeah. Okay, and then your 5 colors on a map is also kind of important. Green is for vegetation, blue for water, black for man-made objects, red is populated areas and man-made objects, and brown or red-brown is contour, elevation, and relief. So understanding that, you're going to be able to tell like what is super vegetated. You're going to notice like down in draws and things like that, you're going to have lots of vegetation, because that usually means there's water. So you'll see usually like on a draw, you'll have like a little water stream that runs through it, and then you'll see that it's very vegetated right around it. That's going to be really thick and hard to move through, which could be beneficial. That might be an area you want to push through, because it's like, ain't no enemy rolling through that, because that's trash. But it also is like, hey, go ahead and buckle up, because you're going to be moving through that for a minute, and you're also going to be making lots of noise trying to go through it, because it's like in our area, that's going to be alders and just stupid stuff to try to go through.
Yeah, swampy.
Devil's
trash.
Club. So keep that in mind. Down in the south, it's going to be like, I don't know, just weird, just
marshiness.
Yeah, marshy, just plants everywhere, water moccasins, all that good stuff. So have fun. I about stepped on lots of water moccasins in North Carolina doing land navigation. So, and that's because I was like one of those guys that's like, oh yeah, let's just push through, and then you regret it because you're like, dude, I should have just gone around that. But, so yeah, know how to read a map. I think that's like such an important skill that just gets overlooked because it's maybe not as cool, which is unfortunate because it'll get you killed.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to do it properly. If you get lost, then you're just lost and you're useless to whatever you're trying to do. So that's I'll get off my soapbox on the map reading. Just know how to do it because otherwise it's going to all go to crap. So patrolling, really quick. Know your formations, know how to move. File, wedge, staggered columns, etc. All the different formations that we've covered in other podcasts. We literally have a podcast called, I think, Formations.
Yeah.
So if you don't know formations, go back, listen, and learn a little. It's kind of hard to cover that stuff in podcast form, but we somehow found a way to do it. What?
I don't know.
A lot of this stuff's going to be done in the file. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, it was pretty rare for us to not be in the file because you're in such small group. Like I said, whoa, what the? Just forgetting how to speak English. You're in such a small group, that wedging out, you're not really getting a whole lot of benefit from besides just like making that much more noise and potentially losing people because we're camouflaged pretty well in a reconnaissance background. Your face painted up, you got your good camouflage. You may be rocking ghillies if you're really going hard, and it's easy to be like walking and all of a sudden you go through like a thick area and then you come out on the other end and you're looking around for your guys and you're just like, dude, where are they? We've experienced this going out, like just doing like working on patrolling with some of our guys, and it's like some guys that have no experience in it, and you pop out after a heavy vegetated area and you're in a wedge and everyone's like trying to find each other, and either they've collapsed in or spread way out and they're like, where is everyone? Like, that's if I got turned around in there. But so just understanding that sometimes the file is your best friend. Just understand how to react to contact, understand battle drills, which we'd love to do a podcast on that. It's kind of hard to do in talking form as well, but we will probably do our best bet to do it at some point. But understand how to react to contact and ambushes and things like that out of those formations, because that's going to set you apart as far as, like, ultimately that's the point of the formation, is to create security. So understand your weaknesses from the file and from all the different formations is important, and how to react out of those. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything on that? I feel like I'm just going.
Dude, you are going, and it's good. No, not really. I mean, honestly, it's like, I think in this context, the most important thing with your formations is just keep accountability.
Yeah.
And don't get caught.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that out, because I don't think I put that anywhere in the notes. As your team leader or squad leader, or however you're set up to kind of your leadership, which we've talked about, it's important, regardless if you're all, equal.
Yeah.
You still need someone to say, hey, we're going this way when it's time to go that way.
Yeah.
So not having a bunch of guys like, no, like, it's like, no,
trash.
Have one guy be the voice of reason and justice.
Whoa.
Dude.
You need it. Yeah, you got to have a operational hierarchy. Like, you need to have, like, when you're doing the whole modern Minuteman thing, you've got your group of guys, you should all be peers. Like,
absolutely.
You are all peers, you're all brothers. But when it's time to get stuff done, there's going to be, usually it's pretty natural. Like, there's somebody that's just better at doing that, better at making those quick decisions. That doesn't mean that you just obey those decisions wholeheartedly. And this is a leadership thing. I don't want to get too off on this, but to be effective, it's really important to have somebody that can make quick, informed and good decisions.
And I think if someone's in that position with a team background, he's kind of been placed there by everyone. Everyone feels that, hey, check it out. This guy, not only does he have the experience, but he shows the skill set to thrive in this area.
Yeah.
Now, if you've been kind of selected to be that person, more than likely everyone's okay with listening to you anyways. Yep. So it's not like, hey, I got to try to win these people over. If you're trying to win people over, you're probably not the best person for the job. Like, it shouldn't be much of work to be in that position for you. But if you have been placed in that position, you got to understand that now you have a higher responsibility, because it's not just about keeping yourself alive. And yeah, you want to keep your guys alive regardless of what position you are, but it falls a little bit more heavily on your shoulders if you're in that leadership position. So understanding how to make the right decisions and not lose your guys on a movement and not get lost on a movement and, all that stuff. So it just falls more heavily. So understand, like, take it upon yourself to get better than everyone, I guess, and try to elevate everyone around you, I guess. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So I kind of covered this, but understand your priorities of work within the formation as far as security goes. When you guys do a halt or whatever, understand, hey, if you're in a file, it's like, if you're in a wedge, it's easy because you're going to be on a left or right side. So it's easier to be like, hey, or you're going to be in the back and you're like, hey, I got rear security. If you're in a file, you kind of just, it's almost like clearing rooms. The lead person has the right of way. So whichever direction the person in front of you decides to go, you're going the opposite, basically. That's how that works. So the front man's got front security. And the guy behind that guy chooses left. Well, if you're that third man, I guess I'm looking right.
Yeah.
That's just how that works. And then the back guy's going to look rear.
Yep.
So
it's pretty simple. Really.
Yeah. So we've covered SEALs a whole bunch. Stop, look, listen, smell. Super important. Don't be afraid if you're the lead guy for your element to stop, look, listen, smell, because they could be super annoyed. Like, dude, why is this guy doing this so much? Dude, if you have a weird feeling, if you get this weird feeling in your tummy and you're like, you know what? I'm kind of hungry. No, I'm just kidding.
Bust out your MREs, dude.
I was trying to open the door for Winnie the Pooh right there, dude.
No. Oh, bother.
Yeah, dude. No.
We're going to stop and get a little honey in the tummy.
No, dude, the little like breath thing at the end was perfect.
Christopher Robin, can we stop, look, listen, and smell?
Yeah, dude.
No.
Oh man, we need to make a shirt with Winnie the Pooh and just reconned out. Recondo, dude. The Recondo Pooh.
That would be sick.
Dude, so sick. Anyway, stop, look, listen, smell. If you don't know what this means, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to stop. You're going to take a knee. You're going to pull security. You're going to look around. Whether this is looking with your eyes, you can look with thermals, night vision. If you got all the tools, use the tools. If you got them, use them. Listen, if you can't hear worth crap, well, pretend like you're listening. Smelling's like where I thrive. I can't listen very well. I can't hear all that great, but I can smell like the best of them, which is a blessing and a curse. I can tell you that right now. So yeah, super important. You can smell a lot of things. Smoke, that's usually not a good sign. Depending on where you're at, you're like, man, someone's got a fire going. So that's a problem. But yeah, so just little things like that. Understand LDA crossings. I think we went over this in patrolling. Mm-hmm. But linear danger areas, you want to avoid them if you can. Sometimes you can't avoid them. Sometimes, like if you're in a populated area, you got fire breaks and things like that, trails. Yeah. You're probably going to have to cross some of them. So just know how to cross them in a secure fashion. So always have security posted up, cross, security on the other side, get your team across, have some sort of rally point on the other side farther through the woods, and then everyone will get back together, and then you can start your movement again. That's basically like a really just dumbed down version on how you do an LDA crossing. Mm-hmm. But understand how to do that. Don't go out on a patrol and not know how to do LEAs. This is why we always, like, we've talked about this so much, like, understand your basic patrolling fundamentals, like just basic infantryman skills. They go a long ways, and it allows you to get into the weeds on some of the more particular skills, I guess. That's not the word I was going for, but that's what I ended up with.
I have a particular set of skills.
Yeah. Liam Neeson just comes out.
Yeah, no, it
kills us.
Absolutely. It's things like linear danger area crossings, Overwatch, bounding, all these like fundamental just infantry patrol movement techniques are critical to understand, and they're easy to practice. Like, go out with your guys and practice it. You can do it on the flat range, like bounding and stuff like that. It's probably better to get up in the woods and do it because it's harder and it's
try it on the flat range first, so that way everyone can understand what right looks like.
It's kind of like tabletopping it,
Yeah, and then go out into the woods and be like, whoa, that's a little bit more difficult. We got like random trees that have fallen down, and now I'm having to like get over top of this stupid tree. And just weird stuff like that. So,
and also, like, you have to learn how to be quiet. You got to do this stuff quietly. You can't be just elephant stomping around. So,
no elephants here.
Yeah.
Going back to,
did you know they're coming out with mammoths?
I saw that, dude.
Coming out with
the end times are near, dude. No, I don't know. I'm sure there's people that think it though.
Oh man,
I'm pretty sure. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so one last thing on patrolling. Understand patrol bases and operations within patrol bases, because you don't know how long of a movement you might have to do. You might have to do a multi-day movement, which sounds insane, but it's not, because I've done it.
Because we've both done it. I wasn't even reconnaissance, and I've had to do it.
Yeah, so you have to do
the way it goes.
Like, a 20-mile movement, and you're trying to move quietly. Well, guess what? That 20-mile movement's going to take you a while if you're trying to move quietly on a 20-mile movement. And yeah, you're going to eventually have to take like a little patrol base and set up security in order to get some food and, take care of yourself a little bit. And yeah, you're not getting much sleep in that, but oh well.
Yeah.
Carry on. All right. Just going way back. Anyways.
Steven's just becoming a team leader again over here.
Dude.
Not again. Figure it out.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it until you get to your ORP. That's super basic on movement. Like I said, we're not going to cover it in super depth. We're just going to skate through it and kind of do like more of a brush up of reminding people that have. If you haven't listened to some of the older episodes that you feel like, man, you're skipping a lot of the steps, go on back, and we probably hit them. Like, we may not have, but we more than likely did. So like, if you're feeling
we
hurt,
have patrolling basics episodes that we did. We did a formations one. We did obviously reconnaissance basics, and then a litany of other ones that cover a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and gear, we've done a lot of gear stuff. So if you're like, well, what am I taking out here? Well, I'll get into a little bit of the stuff, but for the most part, just go ahead and go back to that rucksack post and the modern Minuteman layout, and you'll kind of get an idea. Some of that stuff you're going to shed because, like we're talking about, this is going to be very, very long movement, so you got to think about weight.
Yeah.
Very similar to what Blake Flannery said, Blake Waters.
Yeah, we had
him on. The biggest mistake that he sees from civilians, well, I think in general, is people that overpack. So, and I think that's actually probably true. And just know yourself, I guess, because I feel like you're either one way or the other. You're one of those guys that's like, I don't need that. And you're an underpacker like me. Or you're an overpacker like Jacob over there. So we're good, like, balance of each other. So we can kind of like square each other away. Because sometimes I'll be like, nah, dude, I don't need that. And Jacob's like, yeah, you do. You're in Alaska. You need that. And you're going to die if you don't have it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then sometimes Jacob's like, hey, I'm going to bring this, dude. And I'm just like, you don't need that. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm just like, I'm positive. And he's just like, all right. And then he'll tell me afterwards, like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't bring that because I would have just been heavy and stupid.
Actually, I feel like this last training we went and did, I had a really good balanced pack.
I did too.
I felt like I had everything I needed.
Me and you had I would say me and you had extra stuff that
Yeah, we did.
we didn't even have to touch, but if we did need to touch it, we could have used it.
Yep.
I didn't think it was like wasted space. I think it was smart for us to bring.
Yeah.
I might have shed like one or two things, but they weren't heavy things, so it would have been more of a space saving than weight saving.
Yeah.
Other than that, pretty good.
Yep.
And we're in that weird time of the year where it could either be really, really cold or just not that cold. So it's like, it's kind of hard to prepare for that. So there's that.
And that was actually a reconnaissance training. So,
yeah. So
that's good.
Anyways, we've now made it to the ORP, the objective rally point. Very militaristic, but it's all I know. So anyways, and you can use whatever acronyms you guys want to use for this. Like, I'm not saying use this setup. It's just easier because this is the way I know it. So, so you're going to set up a patrol base once you get there as well. So this may be your second patrol base. This may be your third, dude. If this is your third day moving, good for you. You're probably worn out. You may want to like kind of get reset and then hit the mission hard. But you're going to set up a patrol base, get a good security element.
You want to talk about that for a second?
Placed.
Like the patrol base.
Like where I'm putting it at?
No, like, do we want to quickly cover what a patrol base is?
Yeah, it's basically just a big old death blossom circle.
It's a wagon wheel, dude.
The old wagon wheel. Go ahead and go for it, dude. You're the patrol base.
The patrol base guru.
No.
It is literally a hasty 360 security. It's just a circle. You just go into generally what I want to look for, and again, we're talking rule here. So all of this
is rule.
Look at the title. We'll get into
We're in the
urban
woods
later.
right now.
We're out in the woods. So you want really good heavy canopy from the trees if you can find it. You want to find an area that's got good sources of not only concealment but specifically cover. Places where you can put like big based trees.
Yeah.
You know, based based trees.
Them girthy trees.
Yeah, girthy old trees with all them rings. So that way you can set up good security. Hopefully you've got good concealment. You want it to be an area that's got that's pretty. It's you're looking for that kind of that rural fishbowl. It's like a natural little circle of trees. You've got really good thick canopy. You've got some good hardy trees in there. You can circle your guys up with a decent amount of spacing so you're not just clustered together. You don't want to be so close together that a couple grenades getting tossed into your patrol base just kills everybody. And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Or nowadays, drones fly in and kill your whole group.
Yep.
Like I can't tell you how many videos I've seen of poor Ukrainians tucked into a little hole. And then
or poor Russians. Yeah.
And you're just like, dude, that is some scary stuff. Like, you want to be hidden in the tree line, under some good thick canopy. That's going to hide you from things like drone attacks. It's going to hide you from even scarier than that, aerial assets.
Oh, I thought you were going to say dinosaurs.
Even scarier
just turns into Jurassic Park.
Is aerial assets are way scarier than those drones. The drones are crazy because they can be launched like by anybody, but there is nothing scarier than having and thank goodness I only experienced it in training settings, because when we went to Afghanistan they didn't have aerial assets. But when an Apache is flying over you looking for you, it's scary. And then you get told by like the cadre at JRTC, like, yeah, just so you know, Wolfpack is looking for you right now.
Yeah.
And you're just like, how do we hide from that? But you can hide pretty good. If you've got really good thick canopy, you can defeat that forward-looking infrared and that thermal targeting and stuff like that. Yeah. So good canopy. And then
sometimes there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah, sometimes there's not, But circle up, have good 360-degree security. In your story, Stephen, you referenced like points, like a point of interest or a point of concern where they were like, hey, we're going to put the saw gunners here because if we're likely to get attacked, it's most likely to, or if we could get attacked, it's most likely to come from this direction.
Yep.
So that kind of stuff, like position your assets accordingly. Again, we're talking modern Minuteman, probably just a group of Patriot riflemen, sick. Get your sharpshooters, get your guys that are just snapshots. You know who they are. I know we all want to be the best shooter we can, but we aren't.
Yeah.
There's
Let's
guys.
be realists.
There's guys that shoot better than others. Put those guys in those areas where they can be most effective.
I'm not afraid to say I'm not the best shot in my group. Like, not at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Like, but
it is what it is.
Yeah. So position, like, utilize the assets of your team.
Don't be too prideful is what we're trying to get at.
Yeah. And then by having good security, that is, again, you want to have a 360-degree coverage. You should be paying attention far and near. And then if you can set yourself up in a way that is, like, the more concealed, the better, but you should have pretty good situational awareness. So that takes time to get, like, as a like, for any listener that might see themselves or might actually be that more leadership role person, you're probably going to be the one selecting the location.
Yeah.
You just have to go out and practice. You got to go out and try to get good at it. And then vet it. Like, maybe take half your team and set up a patrol base and have another half, like, come try to find you.
Yep.
If they find you super easy, they're like, dude, we see you. Like, we literally saw you set up. Like,
or if you have a drone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. Yeah, that'd be
go
awesome.
Out and hunt your group with a drone, see if you can find them.
And see how long it takes, And if you're able to, they'll probably eventually find you. But if you're really, really hard to find, when they're canvassing a super small area, intentionally looking for you, that tells you that you did pretty good. Because in contrast to that, if you've got an enemy that is canvassing a huge area, because you could be coming from anywhere, and they're not necessarily specifically looking for you, they're looking for any potential, not just threat, but like point of interest. Well, then if you're hidden good enough to hide from a specific search, then you're hidden definitely good enough to avoid, like a kind of a passive canvassing detection. So,
yeah.
Anyways, that's all I got on patrol base for now.
That makes sense. And then also, if you're operating out of that patrol base for a long time, just understand that would be a time to do, like, if you do 50% security, just having guys that go offline that can eat and do hygiene and all that good stuff. If they need to catch some sleep, they can catch some sleep during that time frame. But
and actually, I would recommend, I mean, if it's going to be very short, like you're saying, like a couple hours or something.
This one's going to be pretty short. Like, if you did a patrol base like mid-movement, then that's probably going to be because you wanted to give your guys a little break.
A little refit.
Yeah. So just know that that's up to you to make the decision. Like, don't smoke your guys so bad that they can't do, because it's going to be pretty physically tasking. And we're going to get into that here soon. But
yeah, and that's another good little rule of thumb. If you're sucking and you feel like you could use a break,
more than likely
other people probably do too. So, I mean, if you're hardcore and just think about, like, just a little bit, like if it's a little bit like, that you're way more fit than everybody, for example, if it's something like that. But if you start, like, feeling it, you're like, ooh, I better take a break because I know that these guys might be really sucking, or whatever. Like, you gotta think about your guys. But
so after you get set up in your patrol base, you get all set up security wise. Make sure that you're set up good. Don't rush into this next step. Just make sure that your patrol base is solid. Oh, also, you're gonna have this patrol base pretty far offline the actual target area. You do not want to get compromised by sound or anything like that. So you're not trying to get so close that it's like, oh man, it's gonna make it easy on me to get set up because we're gonna be that much closer. No, just keep it far away. Don't play around with that. Don't be within sight. Don't be within sound.
Yeah.
Stay far away. All right. And you got to think about not just eyesight, but thermals and things like that as well. So just stay far away. If you need like a terrain feature in between you, whether that's like a thick vegetation, a hillside, whatever, you got some sort of terrain features that blocks you from the site that you're trying to go observe. That's what you want. So then you're going to set up a leader's recon. This is when you're going to take some form of leadership, probably like a team leader or something like that, with maybe one of your, sharp shot guys that you were talking about. Someone that's a good shot.
Sharp shot.
Crack shot? I don't know what you use. What?
I think it's a sharpshooter, but
okay.
Same thing.
Okay.
Let's go.
Let's go. Anyways, so yeah, if you want to take one of those guys, if you have like a sniper element, maybe taking those guys with you. That'd be a super intelligent decision. That's honestly probably what I would do if I was you. But if you don't have that, then just take one solid dude and one dude that's like, he doesn't have to be not solid. I'm sure everyone's pretty solid. Let's be real. But just make sure you have a decent fighting crew in case you guys get compromised. Because you're talking about a small element that's going up, that's pushing up to the objective. So they're going to do their leader's recon. They're going to get eyes on the objective. They're going to figure out, hey, this is kind of where we're thinking to put the serve site. This is what we looked at the map, and it actually looks really good. Or, hey, this is what we looked at the map. We thought it was going to be good. It looks like trash. Let's go to a different spot and see if we can let's see if that'll be a better location. This is going to be all preferably like in that like evening time frame when it's starting to get dark, hard to see. And this is going to be leading into nighttime, because if you have to dig in for your surveillance site, you're going to want to have the cover of night. So that's another point of the patrol base. If you need to hold out in the patrol base until it gets to that right time frame to start moving in, then wait. So he's going to go in. He's going to, okay, I got all my points that I like. I like the hide site. I'm going to want the hide site here. I'm going to want the serve site here. He kind of marks it, whether that's through grid coordinates or whatever. Or if you're just like, hey, I can get back here. That works too. You go back, you get everyone picked up, and before you go at all, I forgot to cover this. Before the leader's recon pushes out, this is the 5-point contingency plan that I think is smart to use anytime you're separating, like you're detaching from an element. Mm-hmm. So, and they're planning on coming back. It's GOTWA. So it's G is where am I going? O, others going with. T, time of my return. W, what to do if I don't return. And A, actions to take if you or I am hit. So that's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll get into that a little bit. So where am I going? So I'm going to do the leader's recon. Others going with. I'm taking Jacob and John. We're sticking with that.
And Jingleheimer Schmidt will stay here.
Yeah, Jingleheimer Schmidt's going to stay here and hold it down. Time of my return. This is important because if I don't return within this time, there's a problem. So when you're doing this, make sure you give yourself enough time. Look at what you're having to do, how much distance you're having to cover, and like, hey, if I do have to move a serve site, how much longer is it going to take me to like replace the site? Mm-hmm. Like, because I didn't like it or whatever. And then what to do if I don't return. So that's within that time frame. If I don't return within that time frame, what are you guys doing? Are you guys coming out to come find me? Or are we moving back to an emergency rally point that we've pre-designated at that point? This is all stuff that we're going to have covered prior to me leaving. And then A, actions to take if you or I am hit. So if we're hit, obviously, hey, we're going into our emergency evacuation plan. Or, hey, we're going to push up and do like almost like a QRF for you. Do a support by fire line so you guys are able to move back, and then we're going to all bound together. Whatever you want to do, but have that pre-designated prior to going in and it being like, let's figure this out on the fly. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I'm just rambling.
No, you're laying it down.
I'm running out of breath. No. Oh, dude, I haven't talked this much. All right. I feel like Ty 907, like, ooh, I'm getting excited.
Yeah.
Or whatever he said. Anyways, so that's your leader's recon. You come back, you gather up the rest of your squad, and then you push forward when your lighting is proper to move in. And you start putting in your sights. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can either, depending on if you're, and we're going to be able to get into this here in a second, your types of site placement. So there's, all right, we'll just get into it because it's going to make more sense. So your serve site, your types of sites, there's the no site, which is like going to be someone like guys and ghillies. So kind of like your sniper cell type setup. That's going to take very little, but more than likely those guys are going to be in a position where they're able to low crawl into, and then they're not going to have the luxury of being able to dig in because they're going to get spotted if they do that. Okay, so that's an option there. You go gillied up. If that's the case, you're not pushing anyone else into that position to help set up. You're just going to have those guys go set up for themselves. They're just going to crawl in there. If you want to learn how to do this, revert back to some of our sniper podcasts that we've had. We've had the Sniper Cell podcast, and we've also had
School Dougie
and on, I don't remember what that one was called. Sniper Basics.
Sniper Disciplines or something. Yeah.
So that covers a lot of staying concealed while moving to your desired spot, I guess. So if you're going to do that style, obviously you're not moving the whole hide site into that. You're just going to have the service type push in, and they're going to basically be like a sniper team. All right. Surface site, which is going to be similar to that no site ghillie, but you're able to actually set up some sort of structure. So basically like a hide, not to get confused with like a hide site, but similar to what you do with the hide site. So you're basically finding, again, overhead canopy. So you want to have overhead canopy. You want to have cover and concealment if you can, but for sure concealment because you don't want to get seen. Because hopefully you don't have to use cover ever, but you definitely just don't want to get seen. And then you can fortify that with camo nets and things like that to try to like mask it a little better. Don't give yourself away, because the more like non-natural it looks, obviously to a trained counter sniper team, they're going to be able to track that down super fast. They're going to be like, what the heck? What is that? And then you have your semi-surface site, which is going to be like a ranger grave. We covered this in, I think, Reconnaissance Part 1 and Part 2. But basically, you're digging in partially, and all the dirt that you're digging in, you push up along the sides, basically creating like a little mound around the whole thing. And then you use vegetation to camouflage that. So, yes, you're not underground, but you're down in like a depression, basically, that you've created. And then you're still going to want to have overhead canopy, so good tree coverage. And you're not as concerned about concealment in that situation because you've created your own concealment, but you are still wanting to have some cover. You don't want to just be in an open field because, for one, there's going to be no canopy, and for two, like if you have to bound out of there, you have nothing to bound behind. So think about that when you pick your site. And does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
And then the subsurface surf site, which is going to be what you're going to want. Sometimes you can start with a semi-surface, like if you're having a hard time digging in, and you can constantly improve through the nights if you have that capability. Sometimes that's not going to work out. Sometimes it will. But if you can go right into a subsurface, then awesome, because that's going to be, you're going to be able to operate out of there for basically indefinitely if you want. You're going to have to get resupplies and things like that, and maybe potentially get broken out or whatever. But it's if you've done it right, then it'll be good forever. And basically what that is actually a hole in the ground you're going to cover up with vegetation. We'll get into that here shortly, but yeah, so that'll be that. Your hide site is going to be very similar to your surface site, and in the fact that you're going to have this, so it's just going to be basically your surface site is going to be the further upon the objective, so it's going to be the one that's getting eyes on, right? And it's going to be gathering all the reconnaissance. Your hide site's going to be farther back, out of sight, kind of similar to where the patrol base is, but maybe in a better location. And it honestly could stay right where your ORP's at if you feel that's the best place to put it. If you're like, man, this is a great spot, why don't we just put the hide site here? Then that's fine. You can do that as well. That's up to you. So, but very similar. You're going to have a heavy canopy covering concealment, and you're going to beef up your concealment while you're there, basically. So that way you can operate out of it a little bit. I wouldn't say less disciplined, but you have the flexibility to be moving around and setting up radios and doing directional antennas and doing all that good stuff. So, so I guess, since I kind of got into how you build all this stuff, so the semi-surface, that makes sense. As far as the camouflage you use to spruce up the mounds, you're always wanting to grab camouflage from behind you. So if you're looking at the objective, grab camouflage from behind you. So obviously don't steal camouflage and just leave like blank dirt clumps behind you. Like go farther back, but use that same color palette that's behind you, because it's going to help you blend into what's behind you from the objective looking at you.
And then you're not taking any veg block away from what's in front of you either.
Exactly. So that's how you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to do that. The same thing with the subsurface. So how do we build a subsurface? Let's just go ahead and get into that, because I know that's all the rage. And I got into this a little bit, Reconnaissance 1 and 2, but I feel like I just like breezed through it super heavily. So we'll break it down a little bit more in depth on how I would actually do it. So if you're going in and you're building a structure, whether it's surface site, semi-surface, or subsurface, set up a security like support by fire team, whether that's snipers or whatever, or just your guys that you feel like are the best shots and are going to be the best behind a gun if things pop off. So set them up in a position that they can return fire if for whatever reason you get compromised during setup. All right. The rest of the guys are going to build. So whether it's, like I said, whether it's a surface site and you're just setting up camo nets and things like that, or semi-surface where you're digging in and then putting up the mounds and then camouflaging, that's super self-explanatory, or the subsurface, which is going to be more difficult. So subsurface is going to be basically just a hole in the ground. You're going to want to position this properly. So basically everyone's going to be laying down inside the hole. You're going to dig it the length of your tallest person and the width of everyone's shoulder to shoulder. Does that make sense? So if you got 3 guys in the hole, me, you, and John, Jacob's the tallest, we're going to dig it to the length of Jacob. All right, we're all going to get shoulder to shoulder. Okay, that's as wide as, that's the minimum width that we need to go, is that width. So everyone's pretty crammed. You're not worried about it. That's just the way it is. So if you need to dig a little bit more, you can. So we like to bring our rucksacks down in with us. So sometimes we ran the length of the tallest person plus his rucksack behind, because we would stack the rucksack in the back side of the hole behind the person. So that was usually the easiest way to do it. So yeah, you dig out the hole. If for whatever reason the ground's like way too hard, which happens in some places, guess what? You're switching this to a semi-surface site at this point, because you've dug as far as you can get and you're starting to lose darkness. So we're going to go ahead and get in and get camouflage around the...
Yeah, because this is all happening at night.
Yep. We're going to go ahead and put camouflage around the perimeter on the ranger grave, and the hide site's going to tuck tail and get out of there. That is what it is. That happens sometimes. So if it happens, it happens. If you are able to dig, you're able to move the dirt, you're going to have a couple different teams. You're going to have a couple guys digging, maybe 1 or 2 guys digging. This is when e-tools or shovels that have been cut down come in super clutch, and you need to have them. If you're planning on doing anything like this, you need to have some form of shovel. You're trying to be quiet, but you also, I think a lot of people think that you have to be like right up on like the clearing into this objective is like right in front of us. No, you can be farther back. You just need to be far enough back that you can see what you're looking at and get information, but not so close that like you digging is going to be like too loud. You know what I mean? And if it's too loud, then just don't dig. Just build a different site. But if you're able to dig because you got like a big clearing out in front of you, like for a ways, and then you're looking at a town, then you're able to use like magnified optics and things like that to look at what you're looking at, and you're able to dig in that, no problem. A lot of people are like, man, you're just going to get compromised. It's like, dude, I did this so much to people that were actively trying to look for me, and I rarely got caught. Like, I don't think we ever did get caught. Actually, I don't think I ever got compromised the entire time I was in training or, all that good stuff. Like, it never happened. And that was even when they were like, hey, go out and look for these guys. We had Apaches looking for us and all sorts of stuff. So it works. You just have to be smart. So you dig it. You have a couple guys cut down trees. What they're trying to cut down is they're going to run not parallel with how you're laying in the hole, but opposite. So perpendicular. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're going to lay them perpendicular. So the sticks are going to be, the ends of the sticks aren't going to be facing toward the objective. You want the cut ends not looking at the objective.
Right.
Because that's like they should be covered, but if they weren't covered, then they would be a red flag because you just have these weird, just white wood.
Yeah.
Like looking at the objective. Anyway, so you have guys cutting down trees. They're going to cut these trees down far behind. So you're going to have multiple veg blocks in between from where you're cutting these trees. Cut these trees. Don't do them all in a row. Do them kind of sporadically through like a tree line. You want them to be all roughly around the same width. I think like a 2-inch diameter is like a good sized tree to do. 2 to 3 inch. Not so big that you're just like, they're literally watching trees fall in the distance, but like just like small. Like you want to go to a thick area where it's not going to be noticeable. And like you're taking smaller trees. Here in Alaska, spruce trees work great. In North Carolina, like the pine trees that had like no limbs were perfect because they were like super easy. Just basically harder wood that can like hold up and isn't super bendy. So nice straight trees.
Yeah.
Take those, limb them. There's going to be stump left over in the ground. A little trick I was taught is basically you just take dirt from the ground right next to it and rub it on the top of that stump. And that's going to make it look like it's aged. It's been there a while, cut down. So for whatever reason, you get a patrol that goes out on foot and they see that cut. It's going to be less alarming because it's not just going to be white wood just like peeking out. It's going to brown it, make it look like it's old. And it works really well. So do that. Drag the trees back. Guys that are shoveling, you're going to have guys shoveling, guys cutting, and you're going to have guys that are hauling dirt away. You got to haul the dirt away a ways, and then you're going to have to camouflage the dirt farther back. So a big problem that you're going to run into is like lots of drag marks from the location. When the hide site leaves the serve site, just make sure that they're going to have to make everything look kind of natural again. Because the easiest way to drag dirt is just taking a poncho, throwing the dirt in the poncho, and just having two guys just drag the dirt out of there. You can also fill sandbags if you have sandbags, which I think it's smart to bring sandbags with you for multiple reasons. I'll get into one of them here in a second. But so you just fill up the sandbags and haul them out on your shoulder, walking them out. But some of the dirt you're going to need to keep, so pile up some of it behind the serve site. And most of the dirt's going to have to get hauled away because you don't need all of it. So then once you get your hole dug out deep enough, so the by the book depth that you want is deep enough that your tallest person can sit up in the hole. All right, so it's long enough that he can lay down, it's deep enough that he can sit up, and it's wide enough that all three can sit shoulder to shoulder, and they're laying down on their stomachs.
Plus a ruck for length if you want to have your rucks down there.
Yeah. Yep. Which I would do that. That's pretty much a must. Anyway, so your depth is going to be usually not that deep. I'm going to be completely honest. It was rare for us to get it that deep in just an overnight period of time because you're talking like 3 to 5 hours of digging is usually what we had to do it. And depending on where you're at in the world, you may not even have that. So like in Alaska in the summertime, you're not going to have long at all. So it may be a night by night kind of situation. Like, hey, it turned into it's a ranger grave right now. Tomorrow, hopefully we can get it where it's a subsurface. Tomorrow night, we'll try again.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And if you're planning on being there for multiple weeks, then I would say that's worth taking a chance on doing. Because once you get covered up, your chances of getting caught, unless you're just being stupid, are unlikely. So anyways, so you get the sticks covering over, or the trees covering over. You've had guys haul out dirt. All the trees are brought up forward. Now You'll lay a poncho over top of those trees that are running across. You leave a man-sized hole on the end. What we would do is basically you cover up. How am I going to explain this in words? All right, so that's hard. I need a picture. Anyways, so you cover from the front of the hole to the back, at the width that you would want, so people can hop out of the hole. All right, and then you run one shorter stick. So basically, you're making like a square opening on the very back corner, whichever on the left or the right corner, whichever way you want to be able to get out at.
Mm-hmm.
But you run a stick front to back of the hole right there, and then you run shorter sticks across to that one stick. Does that make sense?
Kinda. So you've got your square hole, right?
Yeah.
You've got your sticks running
Perpendicular
across the hole.
Yep.
That you're gonna put your lid on, basically. Yep. And then in one of those back corners, you're just running another stick
parallel with the people laying in there.
Yep.
They're not laying in there yet, but yeah.
And then you just don't fill in that hole.
And you don't fill in that hole, and then where that stick is that's running parallel, then you can run sticks perpendicular up to that stick from the other side of the hole.
Yep.
So then there's just basically a small man-sized hole in one of the back corners of the hole. All right?
Yeah.
Then you take your poncho and, well, actually, before you do that, you take 4 sticks with 2 cross sticks in between those 4 sticks, and you tie them together with 550 cord or whatever you have, and you basically make a door, and that's going to lay in that little hole that you just created, that little box cutout. And the idea behind that is that's if for whatever reason you got compromised, even with dirt on top of that, someone can push that push that piece open.
Mm.
If you didn't have that, you're just stuck in a hole and you're going to die there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So you're basically creating an escape hatch.
Okay.
So you put that in there, you lay your poncho over, you put dirt on top of that poncho, kind of covering everything. That spot where you put the door at, don't put very much dirt on it. Go light on the dirt because you want to be able to lift it. You don't want to get stuck in there. Just camouflage it with vegetation more right there, light stuff like moss or whatever.
Leaves.
Yeah, leaves or whatever. Whatever you have as what's in your vegetation at the time.
Yeah.
Pine needles. That was common in North Carolina. So cover it with dirt and then you vegetate the whole thing. So here in Alaska, something that I've noticed is our like grass and ground, it doesn't just like peel up super easy, which is a pain in the butt to deal with, but it also makes it great for camouflaging later. You can do something called veg mat, which is basically like you chop out squares and you peel them up, like almost like a sod, like doing sod squares.
Yeah.
And you just set those aside. And then once you're done, you just use those to recamouflage over top. And you've basically replanted grass above you. And that's going to more than likely grow, which is crazy. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
It will. So if you can do that because that's like your best case scenario. Because if it grows and just becomes part of nature, you've created just a little man fortress inside of the woods
just
that
a
you
little
can
hobbit hole, dude.
Yeah, dude. Like straight up. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so you're done with that. You get everyone in. Okay, we're smoked. We're just exhausted, dude. And we are, dude. I know we are because I've been there.
Yeah.
And I'm exhausted right now just thinking about it. You're sleep deprived. You're doing everything under nods, which is crazy. And you finally get in. And you're like, thank goodness. Okay, so the hide site then goes in. They had some guys that like one or two guys, not probably one, but 2 guys. You always want to at least have 2. Like you don't want to just be solo woodsing around.
Yeah,
I've done it before, but it's not the greatest idea. So always have a battle buddy.
Oh yeah.
And they may have already started sprucing up the hide site, but ultimately, if you're going to if you're going to turn that ORP into your hide site, you already know you have a good location, so it's going to be that much easier. If you've picked a different hide site, then you've probably picked a even better spot for your hide site. So like that's what's good about like, hey, the hide site doesn't work. Well, we have the ORP. We can just go back to. So you already have a contingency kind of set up. There's been some like doctrine kind of type stuff as far as should the serve site know where the hide site's at? I don't know. Like if you trust your guys, it doesn't matter. I think that was more like, hey, if this guy gets captured, then he can't like say, okay, yeah, this is where these guys were at, or like they don't automatically run back to the hide site and potentially bring like all the attacking forces straight to the hide site.
Yeah.
It's like just be smart and don't bound toward your hide site. Bound the opposite direction so your hide site has time to pack everything up and get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I just feel like everyone knowing where each other are is just big boy rules, and there's no reason for childishness. So
yeah.
That was weird army stuff. I always knew where our hide site was. Sometimes they'd try to act like, oh yeah, you don't really know. And it's like, what? Like, I know where you guys are at. And actually it came in beneficial. Like one time we had a patrolling element roll through behind us, and we were able to notify our hide site, hey, you got like a 7-man element cruising up to you, and they're heading from this direction, east to west or whatever. And they're like, okay, small arms, and we kind of gave them a quick briefing. And they're like, okay, sounds good. And then they called back like, hey, yeah, they walked right out in front of us, but they didn't see us, kind of thing. So I think there's benefit from that aspect. It's like, hey, yo, you guys got guys going your way. They passed us, but they're heading right toward you. So
yeah,
and maybe you don't have radio ability, so that may not help. But hopefully your hide site's just being smart and they don't get caught. Am I putting you down?
No.
Okay. So, does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
So, are we good? Serve sites and hide sites are placed.
So, I have a question.
All right, good.
For guys that don't have night vision,
yes,
how are they building a serve site? Is this something you just can't do unless you, like, can you get away with, like, low lumen red light stuff, or is it not worth risking?
Okay, so...
Or can you do it in your transitional lighting periods?
There was plenty of times where I was building hide sites, and I never, like, we moved in with night vision regardless.
Yeah.
But there was plenty of times where I did the entire building process under no night vision, just nods
Flipped
up.
Yeah. Okay.
It's actually easier to build with the nods up, let's be real. But, so, I will say this. The reconnaissance game, because darkness helps you a ton,
because it's your ally.
Yeah, because darkness is your ally. It's really hard to do without night vision. I know in Reconnaissance Part 1 and Part 2, we were saying that it's not required, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it is. I think you can do it without it. You just have to night vision's kind of a blessing and a curse. Don't rely on that so heavily, thinking that, oh, I can see and they can't, because more than likely they can as well. But also understand, if you don't have it, its capabilities as far as if you're dealing with someone that does have it. So, yeah. I think it'd be, obviously, the more capability you have, the more of an asset you're going to be as far as that stuff's concerned. So,
can you make do in your more, like, transitional lighting phases, like dawn and dusk? Yeah.
You can, because night vision doesn't really, it's kind of a sweet spot as far as like your human eye doesn't do very well in that time frame, but night vision doesn't do like super great in that time frame. Night vision still does better than the human eye. I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, that's the perfect time that you can kind of defeat night vision. It's like, well, if someone's
defeat it.
If someone's running a PVS 14, I can tell you right now, and I'll say a PVS 14 by itself does great in dusk and dawn.
Yep.
Because you still have one eye that is looking at it normally and can gather all the information around you. But then you have one eye that can like penetrate into the wood line.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where, like, dude, the PVS 14 thrives in that kind of.
Really, what because I hear that a lot too about like, oh, you know, the night vision struggles in those periods. No, it doesn't struggle. It can see better. Like it's still it amplifies light. You just turn your gain down a little bit and you're good. What you're relying on is somebody, and this is where it really has benefit, is you're relying on an opponent's complacency. And they're like, oh, thank goodness I can see. I'm ditching my night vision.
Yeah.
And I've done that multiple times. I've been that guy because night visions wears you out to wear for long. If you go all night long, you're rocking your nods, and you're in like a guard post or something, and now the sun's starting to come up a little bit, like even if it's just barely, you're quick to be like, flip your night vision up because you're like, I can see now. But really, you can't see super good still.
Yep.
So that's more why I think people say that, at least from my experience. Because, like you said, especially if you're rocking a like one eye under nods and one eye not, like on a PVS 14 configuration, dude, it's hard to beat. It's awesome.
And the beauty of that is just rotate it over to the other eye if you're getting exhausted. Like if you're in a position where you're like, man, I'm gonna ditch my nods, dude, I wouldn't. I just keep it rocking and rolling. If you're in that situation, you're basically you nailed it. You're banking on complacency, and you're banking on them getting in the mindset that, hey, we're the most powerful like element in this area, and they're not worried about small little groups of people that aren't playing with their stupid games. So use that to your advantage. I think I said that in Reconnaissance Part 1 and Part 2. It's like, use that mind game to your advantage. You're the small, outnumbered outfit. Outsmart them and catch them while they're slipping, basically.
Yeah.
So you're all set up. The hide site covers you up. They put the poncho on. They cover it with the dirt. They put vegetation on, reuse the vegetation. Oh, the viewport. I forgot to mention that. So your viewport is basically a trench that you cut out in front of. Usually we cut it in the middle. It doesn't really matter, but usually not in the spot not in line with the spot that the exit port is. So don't have it directly in front of that.
Okay.
Exit hatch. Either have it in the middle or on the, like if you have it on the left side in the back, have your viewport on the front side in the right or in the middle. So the idea behind that is whoever's in line with that port is going to be observing. That port's basically just going to be a trench that comes out at a very soft angle and just kind of straight forward out of the hole, and you're able to see, and it kind of widens as it goes out. So it's kind of telescoped in a way, I guess is the best way to describe that. Funnel. There we go. It's funneled outward, so the wide end's toward the objective. And that's just basically making it so if you're at the objective looking back into it, it just looks like just a weird. You ever seen like if a tree falls over, and I think I brought this up even in the other podcast, but like the root fan kind of peels the dirt up, and it leaves like a little hole right there.
Yeah,
it kind of looks like one of those basically.
Okay.
Same concept. You can do a little bit of camouflaging with that, like putting a net on the inside, similar to urban reconnaissance, to make it so it's even that much darker, so that way no light can shine in there and just like you're just a face
or a lens.
Yeah, or a lens or whatever.
Yeah.
But your lenses should have anti-reflective devices regardless. So if you're running thermals, spotting scopes, binoculars, anything like that, you should have anti-reflection devices on those, because you don't want the sun to gleam in there and just reflection,
Yeah,
and that shows like crazy. Flashlights, the end of your light, it pops like crazy. We played around with this a couple weeks ago, and it's crazy how much that actually like will affect and bust you.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, understand how not to get seen. And we've got plenty of podcasts that cover that, and we probably got a ton more that will, because we think it's very important not to be seen. Sorry. I feel like you today. My throat's going down. So, where was I? Oh, the viewport. So yeah, cut the viewport in. It doesn't make sense until you build it. We will eventually release content showing exactly how to build this on our Instagram, and probably we need to start getting back into our vlogs. So some of the content that we have
blogs,
my bad.
Yeah,
vlog is something different. We
it's
don't do
video.
those.
Yeah. We'll have videos on YouTube.
Yeah, we might do a video on it as well. That'd be kind of cool. But
I think we will. Yeah,
but yeah, we do pictures as well and just basically break it down. Because there's not a ton of information. There's like one article, because I was doing like a virtual training that we kind of do as a group, and I was doing training on reconnaissance for our guys, And there was like one article I could find from like some foreign military that explained this pretty well. And even they did it slightly different, but it was like the closest to how we did it that I was like, okay, this is legit. But that was really hard for me to find. I had to dig all over the internet to find it. So it's like, let's make it more readily available. Anyways, so yeah, they're in, they can see, they got spotting scopes. So basically you got one dude who's going to be, we'll just get into the roles, I guess. Operations.
Yeah. I was literally about to ask how you operate inside the serve site. So perfect.
Yeah, we'll get into operations. So really quick rundown. You've moved in, you've got everyone set up in their serve site and hide site and potentially MSS if you have one. If you don't have one, that's fine. We'll get into that here in a second. So serve site, we'll break it down from front to back. So serve site is the forward-most site, and they're the ones who are actually gathering the intelligence and sending it back. So what are you going to need in the serve site? Well, note-taking is super important. So something that you need to do at every site is, and a lot of this stuff will be repetitive because you're going to be doing it at both sites, range cards. So very similar to everything we've talked about when you've set up patrol bases. Any site that you've stopped at, you prioritize security because it doesn't matter how much information you can jump into a hole and start gathering information right away. We don't care about that because if while you're gathering that information you get caught, you need to know how to attack the enemy and fire back. So start building range cards. I don't know if we've gotten into range cards much.
Yeah, I don't know if we have either.
Okay, so look up a range card. You'll be able to see kind of what they look like, and it'll better inform you how to explain it. But basically, it's just like a half circles going out, and you'll actually, you want to just talk about it since you covered those the last time?
Yeah. So a range card is basically it's a reference tool for really where it comes in handy is if you're going to change positions, which you will be doing in the serve site, right? So if you're going to be the guy that's looking through the spotting scope, watching the objective, for example, but then you're going to go to sleep after a few hours or whatever, and the other guy comes in, well, now he can look at your range card, and if you've done it appropriately, then he can reference it and get an idea of the distance of everything, the ranges of everything.
Yep.
And so what you're doing is you're taking your field of view, literally what you're looking at, and you're figuring out the distance of everything. And a range card basically has concentric rings that are fanning out, so from small to big, in an outward motion, like in front of you. Yep. So the direction you're facing. And then you just quickly sketch like, landmarks or objects that are very easy to identify. So like if there's like a, let's say there's like a big prominent building, you're going to figure out how far away that is from you. And then you're going to quickly sketch that on the little range card, on the little, piece of paper that's got the rings on it, and then you're going to set a distance that each of those rings represent. So, your first ring might be 100 meters, and then if you've got 10 rings, well, then your range estimation or your range card goes all the way out to 1,000 meters. You can set those rings at whatever depth you want, and you can even add rings if you want to in between. I've seen some guys do that because they don't feel like it's representing enough, or they just do something. And what I usually do is, like if I'm going to do like a 50-yard increment, I'll go in between the rings, and just as long as you use your brain, you'll be able to figure it out. And then if it's a proper like Army standard range card, it's going to have a field underneath the actual field portion, or I'm sorry, it under the rings where the rings are, where you're going to draw your sketches, it'll have a note field underneath that, and then you can write in there. You can give everything a title like large building number 1, or gray building, building with lots of windows, whatever, or, red tractor.
Yeah.
Things that are just obvious in your space at what you're looking at.
Yep. And this is only going to be in the direction that you're facing. So, It's really easy in a serve site because that's all you can see, basically, is what's going to go into your range card.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at especially if you're subsurface, I mean. Mm-hmm. If you're not if you're semi-surface or on surface, then you can pretty much draw it anywhere. But obviously, it's going to be of where you're facing. And I think it's important to always put your take a compass, look at what direction you're facing, and then mark that on. Like, okay, I'm facing northeast at this many degrees or whatever.
Yeah.
So that way, people know if they were to jump into that spot, they're like, okay, this is exactly where he's looking, and these are the distances.
Yeah.
And that's just going to help with engagements too.
Yep.
If you have to shoot, and you know, okay, if someone's hiding at that red tractor, they're
at 275 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
Or meters or whatever. And it's like, either A, what to hold to if you're running a BDC, or B, what to dial to if you're dialing, or holds if you're running like a mill reticle or whatever. So it just gives you more situational awareness. And it also gives you a quick reference tool for like movement. So if for example, you shift away and then you're looking at something, you're kind of pay attention to something else, and then you zoom back out and look at the whole objective again. You're like, whoa, that red tractor's gone now. Like, oh man, somebody moved that red tractor. Like, where did it go? Like, oh man, this guy's using it now over here in this little field.
Yeah.
Jot that down into your log, you know. So that's basically range cards in a nutshell, and it's a tool that you don't only use in reconnaissance. You use it. It's best used in like guard posts and stuff like that, or you could even do it in a patrol base if you're going to be in a patrol base for a long period of time, and you're actually setting up there and like defensing it, making it defensible, and you're going to kind of operate out of that location. It'd be worth doing. It just sets you up with a better awareness of where things are at, and gives you an idea of like rough distances of your area around you, so you can make accurate engagements.
Yep. Something I like to do, and little tip, I haven't done one for my current kit, but I need to do it. I'll maybe do it today actually while I'm thinking about it, but it's something I did in the military, was just print out your standard range card off the internet and then just laminate it in lamination paper, and I put that in my like map book that I have. I have one of those battle board map books, and it has all my map markers, and then you can do it all through map marker, and then it can just dry erase whenever you're done. Now, if you're building a surf site that's going to be kind of a permanent structure that you plan to run multiple iterations of people because you want to keep eyes on this objective, then maybe having like something that just stays there is smart. So just having like a range card on right in the rain paper that just stays in the site. We'll get into that here shortly, but that's I think that's a good consideration for the modern Minuteman, to think about it in that vein, like a site that you could potentially use for long periods of time. Because if it's an area reconnaissance that you feel like you need to continue to keep eyes on, then this is something, if you have the resources to keep someone in there at all times, then it's smart to do that maybe. So you brought it up, logbook. Have a logbook. This is where Right in the Rain notebooks come in handy. You're not getting rained on if you're under the ground, but it's still smart to have something that's tough enough to deal with the dirt, but you may not be underground. Maybe your subsurface site turned into a semi-surface because you couldn't dig into the clay or whatever dirt you had underneath that area.
Yeah.
So have good logbooks. With logbooks, just make sure you know how to fill them out. So basically, when you start the logbook, hey, blah, 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 you can use code names if you want to in case the logbook gets compromised or whatever, but this person started in the logbook. And then any time or event that happens, you're basically logging in that book. Like, hey, the red tractor moved at this time frame, blah, blah, blah. All right. So anything and everything. It could seem like the most useless information. Just log it, because it may not be. That's all I can say to that. A good acronym for a report is a salute report. And it's something that we used heavily. So size, activity, location, uniform, time, and equipment. So for a person, obviously size, that's talking about like the group size. So 5 guys, activity, what are they doing? They're patrolling. Location, grid coordinates, or roughly grid coordinates. And uniform, hey, they're all wearing I don't know, M81, multicam, whatever. Some sort of uniform. Maybe they're not in a uniform. Maybe they're all out there in just random clothing.
Yeah.
Jot down what kind of clothing they're wearing, each individual one of them, what they're wearing. Because if you're seeing this one person in multiple areas wearing a cheetah print blazer, it's like, oh, that might be the same guy because that's kind of unique, you know? So jot down the uniform, the time that it happened, and the equipment that they have. So firearms, anything like that. So does that make sense?
Yep.
You're going to do the same thing for vehicles too. So when the salute report kind of works for that, it's more used for people, but we can talk about vehicles. But if you were going to do vehicles, size of the vehicles, so that could be how many vehicles there are, also what size they are, SUVs, cars, are they tracked vehicles, are they, you know, whatever, are they tanks, activity, where they head, like what are they doing, they driving around, they stopped, location, which road system are they running on if you're doing route reconnaissance, uniform, what color are they, are they like all the same color, or it's a bunch of black SUVs, whatever, time that you saw it, and then equipment, do they have mounted weapons, 50 cals, Mark 19s, things like that. That's good information to pass on. So
yep.
And you're doing that with everything. If you're looking at a building, sketch out the building. If you got camera equipment, take pictures.
Yeah.
But if you don't have camera equipment, then hopefully you got someone who can freehand draw pretty well, and they can draw out everything they're seeing. If it's a building, if it's a 5-story building, draw the 5-story building, how many windows you can see, what ways the doors are opening, which side the hinges are on, things like that. Because if you ever decide that, hey, we gotta go into this building because they captured one of our guys, that you'd have to be pretty desperate to roll in like that. But anyways,
yeah.
The more you know, the better off.
Yeah.
The more capable you can be.
This is, you got to remember that you're gathering information.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between information and intelligence. You know, it takes you got to go through that information, and like comb through it and vet it and then convert that to intelligence.
Yeah.
But you don't know necessarily in the moment what's beneficial and what's not. So it's good to take as much detailed information as you can.
Yeah, and and you're not super concerned about that from the serve site perspective. You can be, if you're running more of a sniper cell type team and you're all there is. You don't really have resources like close by.
Yeah.
Then maybe you are kind of sifting through that information a little bit more. But if you have other assets, lean on them to figure that out. Don't waste your time with trying to figure out, oh, well, is this blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can still have fun with it, and it makes it a little bit more enjoyable for you to be like, hey, I wonder. But you don't want to get so caught up on, like, this is the narrative that you miss something, like you overlook something that was clear as day, and you didn't write it down because you wanted your narrative to be right in that situation. You're like, man, I'm really looking for this to happen because I feel like this is what's going on. And meanwhile, right in front of you, this is happening, and you're too caught up with this one player that you're watching. So it's like, don't worry about that. Just gather every little bit of information, because every little bit's going to help. And then you're passing that off to the hide site. The hide site maybe will chew into that a little bit. But ultimately, if they have an MSS and they're just pushing all that information that they feel is important back to the MSS, and that's how that's working. So, does that make sense for notes pretty much?
Yeah.
So observation tools, we kind of got into this. Cameras, super important. Having a camera that can shoot quality pictures and but is durable. That's you're talking about an expensive camera. We have a really nice camera, but it's not super durable. So it's kind of like we'd probably need like more of a field camera in order for us to like truly do like this out in a rural kind of rough area.
Mm-hmm.
So having cameras that can hold up to that, obviously having anti-reflective devices on that camera because you don't want it to get spotted. Spotting scopes, binoculars. I know there's a big push between what's better between a spotting scope and binocular. Use whatever you feel is the best, is how I feel about that. I personally like spotting scopes, but I'm not going to sit here and argue with someone that likes binoculars more.
Yeah.
Use whatever's best. This is going to be team type gear, so not everyone has to carry out a camera, not everyone has to carry out a spotting scope, because then you're just like, man, you got a ton. It may not be a bad idea to have multiples, because, you know, the old 2 is 1, 1 is none kind of situation. If you break one, then you don't have that. You don't have that piece of equipment. So
Right.
Having multiples of that type of gear may not be a bad idea. So having 2 amongst the whole squad would be smart. Thermals, same thing. Not everyone needs a thermal. If you all have thermals, like small handheld thermals, like cool. But I'm talking more like a beast unit that can actually be used for really looking at an objective. That would be good. Night vision. Hopefully everyone's got night vision, but if not, then it is what it is. Pull out your pockets and have them hang on and freaking cruise. No. Just prison style. No. But, yeah. You have anything else on observation tools that might be smart?
That's good.
All right. So, comm windows. I threw this in here. If you think you're going to get compromised on comms, obviously understand that radio signals put out a signature and they can be tracked. So if you're dealing with a larger military source, you may not want to use comms. If you are against like a smaller player, you're dealing with not against, like it's like a freaking battle board out here, but like we're playing Risk or something.
Yeah, if you're surveilling somebody that's not.
But if you're surveilling someone like a I don't know, someone who's taking advantage of a serious situation, like a natural disaster, and they're like being warlords, then you may not be as concerned about them gathering your radio signals. So then you can use radios. I think it's smart to use comm windows because, for one, then you don't have to have your radio on all the time. You save battery. Battery may be a seriously needed thing, and natural disaster, you may not have a way to get new batteries or charge them or whatever. So conserving battery life, having them turned on, turn off when you hit your comm windows to communicate and push information back, I think is smart. And if you miss a comm window, it's a red flag for the hide site that the serve site's got something going on. So then they can do contingency plans off of that. So that's kind of a easy way to keep tabs on if everyone's okay. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. Rotation in the serve site. So this is going to be very up to the people that are in it and how big of boys you are as far as if you can stay awake alone, then let your dude sleep. If you're worried that you're going to fall asleep, keep one up with you. That's all I can say about that. A lot of times I know it's against doctrine, but it is what it is because we were rolling like big boys out on the street. We had one guy up and 2 guys down in the nighttime. And that was just because it's exhausting to get where you are. And go out and try the stuff. If you're like, man, you guys are trash for doing that. Go out and do it and see how you feel. See how much you want to sleep after moving for a couple days without getting any sleep and then getting put in a little dark hole.
Yeah.
Right.
After digging it.
Yeah.
All night long.
So, I mean, good for you if you just want to randomly keep 2 guys up to just not even be able to talk and just be sitting there whispering to each other in a little hole and trying to gather information. But
yeah,
for me, we kept one dude up. If that dude was up during his comm windows, he would flip the radio on and hit his comm windows and then go back to radio silence and go back to observing. And you do hour-long slots or whatever you felt was good. I felt like 30 minute was a little too short, whereas I feel like I just went to sleep. Hours seem pretty fair. So you just do hour shifts between the 3 guys and you guys just roll and rotate. And like Blake Waters said, if you have to, run 1 sleeping bag or 2 sleeping bags and just rotate in and out of those. So that way you don't have as much crap to pack up if you have to blow out. So another thing is hygiene and food. Make sure you're drinking water and eating food while you're in there. There's been so many times where I was in there and I didn't feel the need to drink water and eat food because you're just in a dark hole and it's kind of cool and nice and feels good. And then you get out and you realize, like, dude, I'm so dehydrated and I'm so hungry.
Yeah.
And I have no energy, and now I'm rucking again. And I'm having to get back to wherever the heck I came from, and I've got to go back another 15 miles or whatever it is. And I feel it. It's terrible. So make sure you're staying fed and water. Drink lots of water, regardless if you're not physically burning it while you're in there. It's not a bad idea to plus up on some stuff before you go have to move again, because you burnt a lot getting into there. So continually improve the site. If you're able to make it more comfortable in there, I've seen guys like dig in like little chairs off the dirt, move dirt around to build little like chairs because they dug in deep enough that they could actually sit on a little chair in there, and all sorts of crazy stuff. If you can do it, cool, man. Make yourself a little mud hut kingdom. Just something that the old would be proud of.
Little Tuscan Raiders somehow.
And then using the bathroom, hygiene bathroom. So stay clean. Take care of yourself. Obviously, don't be using smelly hygienes like deodorants, things like that. Something that could get you compromised. You don't want to use you want to use non-scented for baby wipes, but like shower yourself, like clean your pits and keep yourself clean. Don't get infections and weird stuff like that. Take care of yourself.
Be nasty.
If you got to use the bathroom, taking a leak in this hole. If you're in a surf, honestly, if you're in any of these because you're not able to move, the easiest way to do it, and it sucks, but it's just the way that it is if you got to pee, you dig a hole right underneath you in line with your junk. This is another reason why dudes is probably the better people to be placed in the surf site. No offense to you ladies out there. If you got the shiwi, then rock it. But other than that, good luck. Yeah, you just dig a little hole right in front of your Johnson, and you plank, whip it out, and pee right in that hole. Cover it back up with dirt, and you've made yourself a little litter box that you're just living in for the next couple days. Don't do that with your poop, because that's frowned upon and messed up. Your poop is going to, and this is why I love MREs, but if you don't eat MREs, if you're using like mountain houses or something that's like, if you made your own meals, which is cool if you can do that, like freeze drying and all that good stuff, canning. So more on that later. No, yeah. So you can use the bag. The bags are really sturdy. Just, it's hard to do, but you're gonna have to find a way. If there's a will, there's a way. You can poop in that bag while you're laying down. It's tough, but it's doable because I've done it. So do it. Just do it. Roll that sucker down and duct tape it around and throw that in a little side pouch that you have in your ruck, and you're taking that home with you. Or if you were to destroy the surf site, you can bury it in that hole, but you're not always going to destroy the surf site. So
yeah.
So that's how you use the restroom hygiene. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I'm asking you this because I know that I've done this so much, so I might be covering something, like I might be breezing past something that I don't really think about because I've done it so much. It all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But if anything's not making sense, then just ask me, because I'll try to bring it up or answer it if I know the answer.
Yeah. It's tough because I can connect a lot of the dots, so it's like it's making sense.
Yeah. I think I'm covering it for pretty detailed. I tried to cover everything that's in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the old poop maneuver is might be shocking to some people, but you don't want to get your whole operation compromised just because you got to poop.
Yeah,
like sacrifice a little bit of dignity to maintain your operational effectiveness.
Well, and you're in there with your homies, so it's like, dude, if they can't,
I know, but that's out there for somebody that's never done that kind of stuff before. Yeah,
I guess, dude.
But dude, I've had guys, like, when we get into the more vehicle side of things, that's more where my experiences are. And I've had dudes in the turret just straight pooping in the turret, dude, with their head right by their butt just right by my head. I'm sitting in the driver's seat, they're in the turret pooping into an MRE bag. And it's like,
I guess it just
is what it is.
You can deal with a lot,
Yeah.
to get into like something that's a complete side tangent, but just something that kind of is relatable. In my current job, I literally have to watch people take poops and then crush the poop in front of them in a plastic bag with my own hands.
Yuck.
So yeah. I don't know if I want to go into more detail on that because people are probably like, what? So yeah, I work corrections week on, week off. So yeah, sometimes when someone's bringing drugs in the institution, you got to put them in a weird suit.
Crush some poop.
Yeah, you put them in a weird suit, control their bowel movements, and then anytime they got to use the bathroom, they got to use the bathroom in front of you, and then you got to check it.
Wait, you put them in a suit?
Yeah, so you put them you put them in a white, like, it's like this suit that's got a zipper that runs along the back that locks, and then you can take a zip tie and keep it from the zipper being opened up. And it's like this suit that basically they can't get to anything because the cuffs on them are all zip tied closed too, so they can't pull their arms into their sleeves, and their feet have like footy bottoms, like almost like onesie style, like little kid.
Yeah.
So they can't like enter it from any way without like breaking the zip tie. And if they break the zip tie, then they have to restart. So they have to do 3 like bowel movements before they can get cleared. So basically, if they were to like swallow drugs or anything like that, it gets caught.
Oh, okay.
So we can get the drugs before they come into the institution. So yeah,
do you guys find them a lot that way?
Yeah, pretty fair amount.
Do they know, or are they just like, I'm screwed if I'm get put in this suit?
A lot of them do. The ladies can hold it up there forever, though. That's the problem.
Oh, yeah.
But they eventually just give up because it's so uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're just like, dude, I'm done. Because we just won't release them if we know they have it. We scan them like we do body scans and stuff. And it's
so you can see it.
Yeah. It's like, give it to me, and then you'll get cleared. Otherwise, you're just going to sit here forever in this thing.
Dumb.
But anyways, so
off topic, but yeah.
Well, I'm not weirded. That's all to say. I'm just not weirded out by it. So it's like, for me, I'm just kind of like, whatever, dude. Like,
yeah.
Watching a drug addict poop right in front of you is just like classic.
It's just
another day in the office. Yeah. I don't know. But anyways, so being in a hole with one of your buddies while he's taking a poop in an MRE bag is just an experience, dude. So enjoy it. At least you don't have to crush it, right?
Yeah.
Unless you want to try to find some corn or something in there. And so I put in here unit relief / change of personnel. So this is super important, and this is something that we didn't do much of in big military, but I think it's super important for your modern Minuteman. Like I said, if this is a route or an area or a zone that you want to continue to gather reconnaissance on, but obviously you can't keep 3 dudes in this hole for eternity, because that would be cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah.
Because they're literally pooping in MRE bags, and eventually they're going to run out of MRE bags. And they're just going to have to start just pooping in that hole, which is disgusting. They're going to run out of water. They're going to run out of food. You can do water resupply, which we'll talk about with the hide site. But eventually you're going to have to get those guys out. And whether that means, hey, pull these 3 out, we're going to put another 3 from the hide site in, and we're going to keep the same teams on site, you can do that. I would stretch that amount of time. I would stretch it to the point where it's like, okay, they've paid their dues. Let's go break them out, and you guys are going to be the next up in it.
Yeah.
Because every time you do a swap out is a chance of getting caught.
Right.
So you don't want to do it often. I think that's just important to know. Don't do it every night. We're swapping them out so they can take a poop in the woods.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not doing that. Keep them in there for at least 3 to 5 days,
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, that's been said. If you have like a big group, and like I'm talking like this is a community effort, like, hey, this has been going on for a few years now, and you've kind of trained up some people in your community to help out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then you're able to, hey, we're gonna move in this squad's getting moved in on this date, and we're gonna replace your hide site and your serve site, but we'll take over from here. That's when those range cards and all your logbooks and information that you have for that team coming on is super important, because they can look at it and be like, okay, kind of know what the heck's going on. So they're not just getting thrown into it. Because anyone that works like rotation work, you know how dumb it is when you come in and everyone's just like, well, not much happened, so good luck.
Yeah.
And
dude.
they just and they just dip out on you, and you're just like sick. And then you like start your day, and something's just already wrong.
Jacked
and you're
up.
like,
yeah.
all right, I see what they did. We'll get you next time. So don't do that to your guys. Have good notes. Have good range cards. Have a good situation for those people to come in. Because if you built that little... that thing can be like operated for years to come. And it's probably not going to get... It's just going to be there.
No one's going to find it.
Like you could start building them right now if you wanted to. I think I said that in one of the other episodes. If you wanted to start just building these little LPOPs all around, listening posts and observation posts, go for it. That's cool. Jacob's over there thinking like, yeah, we're going to start doing that. You will sacrifice a poncho. I will say that if you do that, because if you're leaving it in sight, just go ahead and have a team poncho that you throw into that hole. Don't let someone use their own personal, like if that's that one guy's poncho, don't let them use that. Use like a tarp or something.
Because that's your lid.
That's your lid. Yeah, you're not getting it back if you don't tear it apart.
Yeah.
So does that make sense for relief and all that good stuff?
Mm-hmm.
That makes the range cards and all that stuff that much more okay. If you know that someone potentially is going to come in here after you, that gives you a little bit more motivation to like have a good setup for that person coming on, because that's what you would want if you're going to go replace them. So think about it that way. Emergency evacuation and evacuation, just standard evacuation. So if you have to emergency evacuate out of the serve site, I'm going to try to hurry up because it's taking forever. I know.
No, you're good.
We still have a lot. Anyway, so it's going to be a react contact. React to, yeah, it's just going to basically be react contact.
Yeah.
Whether you feel you need to push through the objective or you need to get the heck out of there. Bound out. More than likely, you're going to have to bound out because that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a big enough element, so that's why you're gathering reconnaissance. So if you do get attacked while you're there, that guy who's below, that's another thing I need to mention with the jobs. Whoever is below the lid is going to have your most like dangerous weapon, as far as like if it's a long range weapon, if it's like if you have a belt fed, cool. That's what we had. But like if you have a 249 and you're just rolling like that, that would be the guy that you'd want there. So they can pop up, lay down some suppressive fire while everyone else is packing up their crap so they can cruise out. And basically what packing up your crap looks like is not like, I'm not talking like, well, this went in this pouch, so we're going to go ahead and throw that in there and we got to zip this up. No, it's just going to be like stuffing and like literally running. I mentioned it in one of our trainings. I said that one time that we were doing a drill like this, like that we got compromised. Because like I said, we rarely got compromised, so we just trained for it, which I would suggest you do. Just practice doing it, see how it goes. But literally one dude had his, I don't even remember if it was, dude, I think it was just one of my buddies, but he hadn't got his sleeping bag all the way into his ruck. He couldn't get the stuff all the way down because I don't know if it was just too much like too much down or whatever. Well, it wasn't down, but it's like synthetic down.
It's probably just all that air caught in there.
Yeah.
Dude.
That he couldn't get stuffed in, so he just said screw and he clipped his Alice back and then rolled out. Well, dude, I told our guys, I said, dude, it just looked like a windsock, dude, just cruising, dude. He was just running with this thing, just like just
flopping up
flopping the in the wind, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But if you got to do it, you got to do it. Get to your rally point and then police up your gear. Grantham's actually doing that. Shout out to the boy, Granty. If you're listening, which you're not, but
you should be.
You should be. Anyways.
No. Somehow.
He makes a great point, and I haven't even watched all his videos on the evasion ones. I need to still listen to them all, or watch them all. But he makes a great point in the beginning of one of those videos. I think it's the rural one, like the woods one. As he says, that first portion, you're just trying to create distance.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important to think about. Moving quickly, not so quick that you're just ditching your guys, but quick enough that you're able to bound back, you return flyer and you bound back to a safe distance that you can kind of regroup and come up with a plan. Because if you're just like mad dog sprinting it into just no man's land, you may just eventually just run right into like where the rest of the enemy is at. And then you're just like, well, okay, cool. Hopefully you're a POW. That's best case scenario.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so yeah.
Probably going to get killed.
Yeah, you're probably going to get killed, castrated, something,
Yeah.
Anyway, so where was I going with that? Yeah, create some distance, get to your rally point, come up with get everything regrouped, get everything packed back down so then you can move again, but then move again at a good pace out of there with a good plan on how to evade. So, so that's all I'm going to get into for emergency evacuation.
Okay.
We kind of covered that a little bit, like having your emergency rally points that you're going to hit. You're going to have timelines set for those times based off of when the attack happened. You got this much time to hit this one. You got half an hour to be here. Otherwise, we're going to keep moving if you're not there within that half hour or whatever it is. Okay?
Yeah.
Could be longer than that, but it depends on how far away it is. It's got to be reasonable, obviously. So
yeah, be smart when you set them up. We get asked like, well, how do you know where to put that stuff? Get out and figure it out. Like it's very dependent on your area that you're in.
Yeah.
What the route looks like, where people are. Go back up to the METTC thing, and read through that and consider it and apply it to that specific answer or question, and that'll help you get to an answer. But you have to just build the experience to figure this out. There's not like I can't give you, there's too many variables for us to give you like an example. But like those things we talked about for the patrol base, think about those kinds of things. Terrain, masking with your terrain, like making sure you have good cover and concealment. Like those are all good things that you could consider for those, where to place those rally points.
Yep. As far as evacuation on just the standard level, if you are leaving the site, you haven't been compromised, you're just leaving. You want to cover up your trails if you're not planning on using it again. If you are planning on using it again, I would only use it if you have relief that's either like going to be quickly moving into that spot or something. Like there needs to be some sort of change out that happens if you want to continue. Otherwise, destroy it, because it's just going to be a site that people can come look at if they find it and be like, oh, someone was here looking at us. And then if they can just set up an ambush on it if there's no one there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't just have it there and then hope that you can just go back whenever you want. Because if they find it, then there's no way to know that they found it. They can just put like listening devices in there and just, all right, there's someone in there, so let's go get them, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I just feel like that'd be stupid. So destroy it. How you're going to destroy it? You're going to uncover your camouflage, pull some of that dirt off. Obviously, you're not laying that dirt so thick. That's why you hauled a lot of the dirt out so you can get your poncho back. Cut those sticks in half, put them in the hole, put the dirt in, covering it up. If you don't quite have enough dirt, you can go back to where you originally had dirt, bring some dirt back, kind of fix it all up. More than likely, you're going to have enough dirt, though, because with the sticks and the other dirt and then the vegetation on top, you're probably going to be good. So then just cover that back up, vegetate it, cruise out, don't leave much traces of anything. If you had like poopy MREs and all that good stuff. Poopy MREs, dude. Soundbite. Anyways, throw that in the hole before you cover everything up. You can do that. That works good. Cruise back to the hide site. You'll rally up, do a little patrol base, re-plus up on some stuff. If the hide site did their job, they'll probably have water and stuff like that to top you off as a serve site, and then you can roll back to whatever location. Also, on emergency evacuation, if they're like hightailing on you, don't bring them back to like the MSS and your hide site and any of your spots. Go in a different direction, but preferably in a safe direction. And then hopefully your RP, your rally point, will be in a good spot that everyone can kind of re-up again and then keep moving. All right. Hide site jobs. Whew. We're just getting there. So your hide site, you're going to be in that little patrol base that's been plussed up with vegetation. What you can do is you can chop down little trees, something we like to do, and like just literally like cut them with a sharp end, so it like beveled, and stab them into the ground around you to like plus up like a little security area around you in a circle, and that just vegetates it like really thick, so that way you're not very seen. And then obviously you have that good canopy. If you don't have like a super good canopy, you can take camo net, string it out across the top of you. You still want a little bit of some sort of canopy because camo net's going to be like, you're going to look down at it like a drone or something and be like, yep, that's a camo net. So this is more just to hide from thermal imagery. So you still want, even with good canopy, I honestly would still do the camo net, just because of the dangers of thermal imagery in aircraft. If you're dealing with people with aircraft, you don't want to get seen. And they're more than likely going to be above ground. They can dig in too if they feel like, hey, if this is like a site that you guys are going to plan on like running multiple teams through, like to gather intelligence for like a long block of time, then it might not be a bad idea to dig in as well for the hide site. And that's going to go the exact same way as your serve site, pretty much. The only difference is you might have like multiple viewports in different directions, so that way you can kind of see all the way around you. So like a four-way viewport, and then you're good to go. Dig in, freaking rock and roll. That's crazy. I've never done it, but it's definitely doable. Why not? The only problem is covering yourself back up, but you have your little lift up hatch. You'll just have to take that, if you can cut out that veg mat, just make sure it's connected to your little doorway.
Yeah.
And then that way, when you close it, it just stays like where it's supposed to be. It's going to be better than being above ground, I can tell you that. It may not be perfect. Like there might be like a stick or something that you can see, but like you're also not an eyesight of what you're viewing anyway. So more than likely you're going to be good. You are not going to get seen by thermal. I can tell you that. If you're doing it that way, you're going to be like invisible. So range cards again, very similar to patrol bases. You build your range cards, work on your priorities of work as far as like, hey, these are going to be my sectors of fire, this degrees to this degrees, and we're going to overlap over here. And anyone that's done any patrol base work, you know what that looks like. But if you haven't, basically, if you're in a big circle, everyone's sectors of fire is going to overlap.
Yeah.
So that way you have nothing that's not getting covered. So that's if you're above ground. So you build a security force, and then you have like guys working in the middle. This is where they're going to be gathering notes. So whether that's from radio communication or at nighttime, you're sitting like a 2-man element up, like almost like a leader's recon team, to go up there and gather information from the server site. You don't have to do this nightly. You could do this every other night or every 3 nights or whatever it may be, whatever you feel is best. Like we said, every time you go up there, it leads to a higher chance of you getting compromised. So just keep that in your brain. Comms with the MSS. So it's going to be a high power radio with directional antenna. What does that mean? That means you're able to push a far distance, but you're going to have it directional. Instead of your sound waves going omnidirectional, they're going to be pushed in one direction. That doesn't mean that there's unidirectional, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be signal getting pushed somewhat omni, but most of your direction, or most of it's going to be uni. So like you can still pick it up if you were close enough, basically is what I'm trying to say. There's going to be,
it's like a cone. It's more like a cone than it is like a
So just take that into account. If there's roadways in between your MSS and hide site, that could be a concern, because potentially there's someone that's like running like a whatever those things are called that detect radio.
Listening post?
Yeah, like a listening post. But a mobile listening post.
Oh, yeah.
Like a vehicle-borne one. So have comm windows set up with them. This goes back to the same thing that happens with the serve site and the hide site. It's smart. Have your comm windows separated so that way they're not interrupting each other. But your comm windows with your or from your hide site to your MSS will be the same. Like you're going to, it's going to alert the MSS like there's an issue if for whatever reason you miss your comm window. I actually had that happen in the military one time where the hide site missed its comm window with the MSS, and the MSS was actually able to push signal up to me. I didn't go back with comms because we were running an omnidirectional, but we were a surface serve site, and actually this was the time I was talking about that I went by myself, but I told the rest of my guys because we were just a 3-man element. I didn't want to leave one guy on the objective. I'd rather left 2 guys on the objective, but I said, okay, you 2 are going to stay here. I'm going to cruise back to the hide site and see what the heck's wrong. And not to dime anyone out, but people fall asleep sometimes. That happens. But yeah, anyways, I get back to the hide site, and I had a couple sergeants that were down and out, dude. Sleepy time, dude. What's crazy is one of the saw gunners that was there. Dude, so funny.
So the whole hide site was sleeping.
Yeah, they'd crashed. I found out later that my squad leader was pissed because my team leader was supposed to be the one that was up, and he'd fallen asleep, and my squad leader was like, I guess, just chewed into him.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Good reason.
Yeah,
that's wrong. Don't ever do that. So if you're that tired, maybe keep a second person up with you. That's a good example of when you'd want to do that. Like if you're like,
yeah, or just you just get a jump rotation and you just got to wake somebody up. Be like, dude, I'm so sorry, but I can't stay awake. I can't.
So
and that's just the way. That's just the game. That's the game that's got to be played, and that's just being ready to go. And don't be all pissed off at your buddy for doing that. Like if he's, don't be that turd that's just doing it. But if you're that tired and you're like, I am worried about the security of my unit. Yeah. I'm worried about the security of my element here, and just wake the next guy up. Be like, dude, hey, I'm full transparency here, man. It's earlier than it would have been, but I can't stay awake. I got to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And just be like, all right, I got you, brother. Like, no big deal.
Anyways, yeah, so I get back. The saw gunner's like, is that you, Barlow? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, where's Sergeant so-and-so? I won't dive him out on the radio. Or on the radio, but on the on the mic here on the pod. No one that I've had on the podcast, so I'll get that straight. So it wasn't old Chris Roberts. He would never. It wasn't him, actually, though. That almost sounds sarcastic. I promise it wasn't him. But anyway, so I get back over there, and I'm like, yo. I'm like, hey. And they're both just sleeping next to each other, just cuddled up like 2 warm little fuzzy bears. And I'm like, yo. And they're like, they wake up. I'm like, hey, dude, Sergeant so-and-so is trying to get a hold of you. And they're like, oh. And they're just like, yo. Like they kind of had like a little tussle right there. Not like fight, but they're just, I'm like, I'm going to get back to where I'm supposed to be at. So I get back to the surf site, and I cruise back in with my boys. But, dude, classic. I will say this, dude. My platoon sergeant loved me after that, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he knew it was me that went to go. Dude, anytime like we were using civilian vehicles, he'd always be like, Barley, you're with me. Every time, dude. Yeah. He was like, dude, this guy.
In the old PSG's favor, dude.
Kind of. Not really. I mean, it never benefited anything. I didn't get sent to any cool schools or anything like that. I probably could have if I would have wanted to, but I just was like, I was over it at that point in my career. But anyways, so already disgruntled.
Yeah.
Where was I at? Comm windows. So your comm windows are going to be staggered from your surf site to your hide site. If you don't have comms, then your MSS is kind of useless. There's no reason to have an MSS if that's the case. So don't even use an MSS if that's what you're rolling with.
Yeah, which is why, I mean, hopefully you're everyone's tracking this, but this is why you've started from the front back, because the most important site is that serve site. That's eyes on. Now we're working our way back.
And very similar to the Sniper Cell podcast, like if all you have is that's all you have. You have a serve site with those snipers.
Yep.
That's all you got.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And then, exactly. So as we're working our way backwards, if you don't have the personnel for it, then that gets dropped out. But it's still important to understand the whole structure, not just from knowing how to do it, but also how it could potentially be used against you by a more conventional force. So there's that aspect too. So it's still very, all this stuff, it's like you should definitely strive to understand it.
Yeah.
So.
And this is more, I mean, this is definitely small unit tactics. So this kind of stuff isn't going to be used against you a ton. It could be.
Right.
Obviously, it's getting taught in the military, but like one of my buddies says, we're the last breath of Vietnam. So he'll enjoy that when he hears that. Anyways, it's so accurate, dude. It's crazy. He said it and I died of laughter. But anyways, so comm windows, that's how that's going to work. Your resupply. So resupply, this is where the hide site's basically being, and this is where the hide site, I think, is, like, if you have the numbers to pull off the hide site serve site combo, at least, I would try to do that, because the hide site's basically like just a a mother for its child out there. It's looking out for
dude.
it, and it's able to do so much more because it's covered by the security of terrain and distance.
Yeah.
So it's farther back. It's got more flexibility to go do things. So if you have water, it can go do water procurement. They can send a two-man element out to go do water procurement. What does that look like? If you got gravity feed bags, just fill up a dirty bag, bring it back to the hide site, hang it.
Let it filter.
Yeah, and just get gallons of water.
Is it also kind of a like a passive rear security for the serve site?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's set up behind it somewhere, like
Yeah.
farther away. But
Yeah,
that way, if you got a patrol coming up behind the serve site, it's a hide site. Hopefully, it's gonna pop that before.
Yeah, and you may not be able to do anything if you don't have radio capabilities. You
just hold tight.
Yeah, you're
Hopefully
basically hoping that your server site's as good as you thought it was, which that's why it's so important when you leave as your like squad leader or team leader or whatever it's in charge of the hide site, that they really make sure that it looks good leaving, because they're the last one to put eyes on it. Like, hey, this thing's as camouflaged as we're getting it. It looks solid, and I think I'm happy with it. And B feet. All right, so your resupply. So they're looking at water procurement. So serve site support, for whatever reason, if the serve site starts going black on food, water, batteries, their memory card starts getting filled up in the camera, this is when you'd send a two-man element push forward to go resupply. So, hey, we're dumping water off. We got a couple extra MREs because you guys don't have the room to pack because you guys are in a tight little confined space. So here's some food. Food, you shouldn't be running out of food. That's a packing issue, honestly, but it can happen. So we'll bring it up. But pack well. Make sure you have enough food to sustain. Same with water, but sometimes you run out of water. They can re-up on water on the fly. You can't, so they can top you off. Batteries, that's also a concern. Like if you're running a thermal that's burning tons of batteries, you may need more batteries. You're not going to be carrying all the weight in your ruck. Some of that supply is going to be back in the hide site with those guys. They're going to be carrying some of that weight as well. Memory card. You may want to swap out memory cards regardless. If you're running a camera, swapping out a memory card every other day or every 3 days or something like that may be smart. If you have like a tough book in the hide site that you can plug in, pull it up, and you can see the images that are being taken in the serve site. Some guys will run a tough book in the serve site as well, which is fine if you want to do that. Cool. There's just not as much benefit. The only benefit that would be is if you're like only running like a serve site operation, you don't have a hide site, then that's kind of like where you're kind of doing all your, not only are you gathering the intelligence, you're also figuring out what's intelligence and what's just information, and you're kind of trying to decipher on the fly inside the hole. If you're not subsurface, I would suggest not running a tough book. So I would only run a tough book if you're underground, like if you're in the serve site. Hide site, you can run it above ground, but again, if you want to dig in, it's going to be that much better. You'll have a little hole that little office that you're working in. So, continue to improve. I'm going to put this on all the sites. Always improve. If you didn't start with a subsurface and you're like, hey, let's go ahead and start digging into this bad boy. We're going to be here for a while. Start digging in, make it so it's that much better of a spot. Your unit relief and change out. Same thing. If for whatever reason there's a team that's coming in, they're going to replace both the hide site and serve site. Have your range cards all set up. Have all that information ready for that team to come in, and it's going to be an easy changeover. And then emergency evacuation and evacuation, kind of same thing. If the serve site has to beat feet, does that necessarily mean you have to beat feet as a hide site? More than likely, yes, because you've been compromised, time to pick up and roll out.
Yeah.
So you may have a little bit more time in the hide site if the serve site is the one that's compromised, just because they haven't actually compromised you, but they've compromised your team. So pack your stuff up, get your bags all set up, and then if you're subsurface, pop a guy out that's a security element that can lay down some fire. Same situation, and then you're going to bound out. Get to your rally point. You're going to wait for your destined time. Hopefully your serve site guys get there. If they get there, come up with a battle plan and cruise. Move on to the next points.
You mentioned earlier about you think it's a good idea to bring sandbags with you. And you said you'd talk about it later.
Oh, yes. So this can be hard to explain as well, but so not only are the sandbags smart for hauling the dirt out, you can also fill the sandbags up with dirt and use it to build structures off of. So like, let's say you got a serve site that you're on a hillside. Mm-hmm. So like the downward hill is going into the objective. So you're uphill of the objective.
Yeah.
You never want to be on the top of a hill. You don't want to silhouette yourself on the top of a hill. So you want to be slightly down the hill. So that way you have just land behind you. So you don't have like skylight behind you. Otherwise you're going to get caught. That's also another reason with patrolling that you want to know terrain. You never want to go over top of hills. You want to crest hills. So stay on the sides of the hills and use the terrain to your benefit. So if you're on like a super steep hill downward, obviously if you dig into that hole, you're not going to be able to be laying with your face toward the objective because it's like a steep hill. You understand what I mean?
Yep.
So this is when you're basically going to cut into the hill and build like a shelf. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you cut into the hill, you build a shelf. It's not ideal to do it, but if this is all you got, you always want to be above the objective if you can be. You can be below the objective. I've had surf sites where it's below the objective. It's just kind of harder to see. Mm-hmm. It's doable as long as the hill's not like... If the objective is still on that hill, it's still on the same plane of view, then it works. If it's uphill and then onto a flat hill where you can't really see up over top, then it doesn't really work. So that's obviously that's the way it works.
Right.
So, but if you're on a steep hill, you basically cut in. You're not going to be able to build a surf site that you're going to be able to operate for a long time out of this way, but it's going to be more of a semi-surface. So you cut in, you take those sandbags and you stack them up in front of you. You take dirt and run them at that same slope as the hill in front of the sandbags, mm-hmm. and you're sitting behind the sandbags. And basically what you're doing is you're building that hill up back up in front of you, and you're hiding behind those sandbags.
Okay.
And you're sitting up. So you can either stand in it, but more than likely you're going to be sitting. So sitting on your ruck or sitting on like a stool or whatever, but you're able to look right over top of the sandbags. At that point, then you run a camo net over top of that, and you're able to use vegetation on top of that camo net, and you're just looking through. You're basically taking your optics and burning through that camo net and everything.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Hopefully that makes sense for the listeners as well. But because I was doing lots of hand motions that you guys didn't get to see. But email us if it doesn't make sense. We can probably break it down better. Hopefully we can do
there's stuff coming on it.
Picture and video on that as well.
We're absolutely gonna cover down on this because it's an area that Steven's very experienced in, and I've got to.
I never got to do one of those actually the entire time I was in.
Oh, really?
Because they're so rare. I learned how to do them. We might have done one just to learn how to do it, just to have fun with it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I ever did one for like a mission or anything like that. Yeah. We never were on a steep enough hill that it mattered. Even if you're on a downward hill and it's not that steep, you can just do a normal.
Right.
You just dig it like slightly
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just meant reconnaissance stuff in general.
Yeah.
Is what I mean by you having a lot of experience. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's what you'd use the sandbags for. You can also use them for other stuff too. If you need to, in the hide site, use some of that dirt that you got out of there to haul back and build like more
defensible
cover.
Positions.
Yeah, defensible positions. That's smart to do as well.
Yeah.
Sandbags are super light. Just get those just bags of them and have a guy hauling in some sandbags. They're really light and don't take up much room. And I think it's a good thing, have a couple guys that have like 10 or 15 bags, and then you got a bunch. You got a bunch of sandbags right there.
Yeah.
If you need them for your surf site, then you have them. If you don't, then hey, plus up your hide site, make them better, make it more defensible. Just make sure to camouflage them because sometimes sandbags aren't they're not the most natural looking thing. So,
can you lay if you build your surf site? Sorry, I know we're kind of jumping around because we've moved out of surf site, but can you align the inside of the surf site with some sandbags to give you a little more ballistic protection, or is that not really necessary?
It's not really necessary. I mean, it depends on. Usually, in the surf site, from my experience, you have so much dirt out in front of you that,
Right.
I mean, I guess you could someone could shoot right at the toe of where the hole begins,
Mhm.
basically, and probably penetrate into there. But you're not staying in that hole. Like, if you start getting shot at, dude, you're getting out of that hole. That thing's a death trap. So you need to get the heck out. Don't have the false security that you have some sort of actual fighting position. It is somewhat of a fighting position, but it's not really either.
It's an observation position.
Yeah.
It's for looking at things. It's not for shooting at things.
Yeah. So
you're not sniping through that hole.
No.
Was that ever a thing?
What, shooting through the hole?
Yeah.
I mean, if you needed to, I guess you could, but I would almost rather just have some guy pop up out of the hole,
right,
and engage. And that doesn't mean that he has to get all the way out of the hole. If all it means is him just peeking his head out and having cover of his body, then he can do that, or he can jump out and get offline to a tree or some sort of other cover and concealment to rain down fire, while the other dudes just kind of pack their crap up. That dude's ruck. And this is when it comes into the whole, a lot of guys will say the rucksack assault pack kind of thing. Some guys will say only bring your assault pack in there, have your rucksacks staged at the hide site, which is fine if you want to do that. It's just that much more that the hide site has to haul out if, for whatever reason, an emergency happens and you don't have any of those resources that you had out of your ruck.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. There's pros and cons to both ways to look at it. We always took our rucks into the hole with us because then you have all your individual sustainment for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's more important. But if you want to run something more light in case you did have to get blown out, then run the assault pack. And hopefully you get your rucksack back from the hide site. Hopefully they grab it for you. So that's just going to be up to you to come up with SOPs and play around with it.
Okay.
Me personally, I think just having your own ruck is smart. But anyways, so evacuation of the hide site, pretty simple. If you have a subsurface, same thing. You're going to cover it up and you're going to roll out. I will say that going up to the surf site and helping those guys get that surf site tore down in the nighttime might be a smart way to do it. And then you guys can go back to your hide site and then police that one up. But however you decide to attack it, that's how you're going to attack it. And then you're going to roll out to your route, your evacuation route that you have pre-planned.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's going to be the same way you came in. So that makes it pretty easy. You know what you're coming up on. For whatever reason you have a follow-on mission, then you're going to go do that next. So for the mission surveillance site, what are the tasks? So same thing. It's going to be a patrol base. Very similar to the hide site, but it's going to be way offline and not any form of danger. They're going to be building range cards, priorities of work, all your overlapping sectors of fire. They're going to be gathering notes from the hide site, and more than likely multiple hide sites if you do have an MSS. I would say if you're running an MSS, more than likely you have more than one team. So that may be, what is that looking like? That might be like one team's on an area reconnaissance while two other teams are on route reconnaissance. Those routes are pushing into that area. So they're basically doing overwatch for what's going on, what's coming in and out, and supply chains and things like that. And then the MSS is gathering all that information from multiple hide sites and piecing everything together. Like, hey, this black SUV keeps coming in and out of the AO during this time frame. What is this guy? Who is this guy? Hey, whoever's at the area, tell me what the guys look like that are coming out of these vehicles. All right, yeah, there's that guy that's got the patch on his eye. Yeah, we've seen him in other locations. Who is this dude? All right. So it starts turning into just very video game-esque, but that's, I don't know.
They get it from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, so range card priority works. Notes, gathering all the notes. You're going to be kind of deciphering the information, figuring out what you're going to focus on, but don't discard any of the information that is getting brought to you just because you feel like it's not important. Obviously, notate it. Comm windows, if applicable. You're going to be running high power with directional antenna as well. So you may have multiple directional antennas faced if you have multiple hide sites with different channels that you're running. This is going to kind of come into like what kind of commo guy do you have? What are your capabilities as far as like, hey, you're going to be running multiple channels for different, because you don't want to be hogging up each other's crap.
Yeah.
So you're going to be running off different stuff to gather this information. If all you have is one hide site that you're worrying about, then it makes it super simple. And honestly, the MSS is kind of not needed at that point, because the hide site can do everything that the MSS is doing if they're capable people. So I feel your MSS is more important if you have multiple teams and multiple locations. And all it could be too, another thing is multiple. This happened too. We had multiple teams on one area, just from different views. So like a big city. One time we were doing reconnaissance for some Green Beret type guys, and they were about to hit this structure. It's like a big mount village, and we had multiple surveillance teams around this little village that they're going to come in on little birds and hit and clear. And we were basically telling them, hey, these are these guys. They come out. There's this many people. They got this many vehicles. We're taking pictures for them, and we're sending it all over. My captain actually flew in with them on the little birds, and they told us, you guys got to be packed out and out of there by this time, because we're going to be flying in at that time, and anyone that's got a thermal image, we're dropping bangs on, so we're flashbanging. So literally we had to be packed out, so we didn't get to actually see him hit the village, which is kind of a bummer. I wanted to see him like go through and clear it, but my captain said that they made quick work of it, and it was a huge city that they cleared out. I was like, dang, I wish I could have watched it, but it is what it is. But
you did your job and got out of there, dude.
Yeah, so we reported all the information up, and they hit it, and got the old kudos, and that's all it is. So
Yep.
That's as simple as it can be. That could be all you're doing the reconnaissance for, is for some sort of hit or something like that. You know, you've paired up with the United States National Guard, and you're trying to help them defend against Russia. And you're like, hey, dude, I know this area super well. Like, you want us to go get some intel for you guys before you try to go rolling in there, or what? And maybe they won't trust you, or maybe they will if you have a good rapport within your town, and your local law enforcement's like, no, these guys are squared away. They constantly help us with this and that, and I trust them. Like, they got experience and these kind of backgrounds, and these guys are probably gonna be like Jacob. You said when I think our Sniper Cell podcast, if some dudes come rolling up in some ghillies and they're just like, hey, dude, I've been cruising over there, and
yeah, you want some grids for you to freaking fire mission on? Like, yeah, dude. All right,
that might be like way out of the scenario of possibility, but like, why not? If you got the capability, then why not use it? So, I got lost. Resupply, small unit sustainment. MSS is where your headshed guys are going to probably be. So whoever your top dogs kind of running the show are going to be at, and these are kind of the mommy and daddy of the camp. So they want to make sure that everyone's squared away. They're taking care of their dudes and make sure that, hey, whenever we get done with this mission, we're going to make sure that everyone's plussed up on ammo and liquids and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Lace report, basically. Liquid ammo, casualty, and equipment.
Yep.
So hopefully no casualties, right? So, and then they're going to continually improve their site as well.
Yeah.
And this is all the same stuff. So unit relief, same thing. Make sure all your stuff's squared away, so if you do get relieved, then you're able to give them a good layout on what's going on, and then the emergency evacuation and evacuation. Also, another thing with the comm windows between the MSS and hide site, if they miss a comm window, yeah, you may be able to find yourself in the same situation as me, where they were able to get a hold of this, the surf site was able to overhear what the heck was going on, which would be a problem, because more than likely that dude's pushing his signals too far, if that's the case.
Yeah.
But we're a big army, so it didn't matter. We were hogging all the channels regardless, so it doesn't matter for us. But that's a problem. So that's going to be good for your serve site to keep an eye on. Like, hey, if you're picking up their chatter, then it's like, hey, dude, you guys are pushing it. It's getting pushed too far. It's not going to work. Like, let's cut this off. But if they do miss their comm window, that is a sign for the MSS, if they do have a QRF, to maybe deploy their QRF to go to that location. And that QRF needs to know, like, hey, check it out. We are a quick reaction force. Yes, we're moving quick, but we also don't want to get caught ourselves. And if they get to the scene and, hey, this is the area that they're supposed to be, but there's enemies all over the place, more than likely they got compromised and they're probably dead at that point. So there's no reason to go in there and fight. Unless you feel like you have the numbers to pull it off, which more than likely you don't. But it's not worth losing a bunch of lives over. Now, if all it is you get there and the radios are jacked up, well, sweet. We figured out what the heck's wrong. We can push back or resupply or whatever. If that QRF's got like some stuff that can swap some stuff out, then you're back up and good to go. So QRF's not going to do much in this kind of small unit tactics stuff, but if you have the capability to pull it off, then go for it. Anyways,
so we'll probably do a whole podcast on QRF stuff in general, because that whole mission is unique, and important to understand. But it's it's pretty self-explanatory, but there's a lot to consider as far as QRF stuff goes.
Yep. And then as far as other teams, other support teams that you might have, support by fire, your sniper team and or gun teams, if you're able to place them in a position where they're not as easily seen, but they're also able to lay down suppressive fire for your surveillance site team, then that's a good option to potentially do. That's just like an overwatch for them. They're going to have the luxury of being far enough back that they can, hopefully, that they're not just glued into one spot. They're able to, go get water if they need to go get water. They're able to kind of run on themselves. Like, just if you can communicate with the serve site, letting them know, like, hey, we're going to be offline for a little bit or whatever. But obviously, they're not going to be able to be posted up there for long periods of time because all they have is like the camouflage that they have, and they're not underground, so they're not able to just like move around like the surf site team can. So they're gonna have to get broke out from time to time. But
so is this constructed a lot more like the hide site then?
Yeah, this would be kind of hide site.
Okay. But far, very far, like a lot.
Yeah, and it's going to be very dictated on the terrain. If you're not able to pull it off, you're just not able to pull it off. Sometimes the terrain's not going to allow you to do it.
Yeah.
But we did have certain missions where we had sniper support by fire elements. Actually, one of the missions that really sticks out in my mind was we were practicing blowout drills, and basically it was an SOP for us to, in our surf site construction, not all surf sites, but a lot of them, we would plant a claymore out at least 5 meters out ahead of us because that was the safe distance for it to get blasted off.
Yeah.
And this one was literally at 5 meters in front of us. And I remember when we blasted that thing off being like, dude, I hope this is actually safe to do. Because we actually clacked off a real claymore at the exact distance that was safe enough to be in front of us. And that was fun. But
did you feel it?
Oh, dude. Yeah, it was in Fort Pickett, Virginia. I remember exactly where it's at because that was like the only place that would allow us to do it. Because weirdly, Fort Pickett, Virginia, like their regulations are so just like, yeah, do whatever you want, man. Just freaking go for it. It's like a National Guard post, I think.
Okay.
And actually, our Uncle Jeffrey, he's a trooper down there, or was, he just retired, was a trooper down in Virginia, and he said that they go there for all sorts of explosive type stuff, like breaching and things like that. He said, yeah, that's where we go to do all that stuff too. He's like, they just let us do anything down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we went in there and we clacked that thing off, but we had a sniper team that was doing Overwatch, and as soon as we did that, dude, you could just hear those snipers just plunging rounds over top of our head. And we had these there were steel targets, which we rarely got to use steel targets, but we did here. We had steel targets down on the objective, and it was far away, but we clacked that thing off, and I jumped out, saw, we just started dumping rounds, and everyone started picked up, and we started rolling out, and we rolled out, and that whole time you could, but you couldn't, like, I couldn't figure out where the heck they were at. Like, I had no idea where the sniper team was at. I just know that they were just, and like you could hear it just smacking the targets down there.
Yeah.
It was sick. And those guys they stayed there. They took their shots as we were rolling out, and they didn't pick up till after we were already gone and out of there. They were still plunging rounds for a while, and then they eventually picked up. They're all gillied out. So there's certain times where it's smart to have that, especially if you're running like a ranger grave, or you're not subsurface and you got a higher chance of getting compromised, it would be good to have a security element.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that was a fun little mission. But yeah, it shows that it's definitely usable. But and same thing with your gun teams. Similar situation that I was doing training. We were doing urban reconnaissance. We had a gun team up over top in the wood line looking over. We had gotten into a city, and we were doing urban reconnaissance while we were doing a drill where we get compromised in urban reconnaissance, and we had to basically fight our way out. And I think it was actually my last mission that I was in the military for. And yeah, same thing. They had pop-up targets in the city, and we went from, we were like in this little small building. We basically ended up pushing through this little tiny town to clear all the rooms. But as we were pushing from building to building, those guys and the machine guns were just dropping targets as we were coming out of the building. So you just see tracers and just dropping targets. And we were shooting targets too as we were moving, but those guys were just dropping them, and then we'd move up to a room and do, battle drill 6, go in and clear rooms and shoot targets that were inside and whatnot. But that was a fun little mission. But anyway, so that's where your sniper and gun teams would be utilized for a support by fire element. And then we talked about QRF. That would be another type of team. But yeah, they're usually deployed out of the MSS if needed, and if you even have the bodies to pull that off. So that's pretty much rural reconnaissance, super rapid fire.
Yeah.
Still 3 hours.
Dude, it's a lot to cover and still pretty abbreviated, really. I mean, you could have gone so much more in depth on stuff. And but yeah, you can kind of see logistically that's the structure. And then kind of some operational points that Stephen made on that, and just really think about that structure and apply it to your local area and how you could potentially use that. Especially, I mean, it sounds like you get a good serve site location set up and you can use that thing for long periods of time.
Yeah, I'd say indefinitely. Especially if you did a good veg mat plant and the vegetation lives, you're going to be there. You can be there for a minute. If it starts to die, then that's an issue.
Yeah. At
and
some
you
point,
can
you have to retire it.
You could either retire the site or just replace the vegetation. Just pull it off, throw it back farther, bring it back toward where like the hide site is or something, and then re-veg it in the nighttime. So that way you're not ruining just all the work that you put into it. But yeah, I mean, it's from like fighting in your own backyard kind of mindset. There's no reason why not to keep using it if you feel like, hey man, we're getting good information from the site. Let's keep this site active.
Yeah.
And obviously you dig into a site and you're not getting much information. Maybe it's like, okay, we're going to move on. We got to use these resources somewhere else.
It's funny how some of these tactics that have been around for decades and decades and decades, are still very applicable today. I mean, you look at the modern combat we see over in Ukraine and Russia, lots of drone usage, like we mentioned earlier,
Yeah, which I didn't even bring up drones.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to do drones, it makes a lot of this stuff that much easier.
Well, I was saying for defense against it, subsurface site, if they can't see you, can't find you, all that kind of stuff, they can't target you, they can't fly it in and destroy you,
Yeah.
So that's huge. That's powerful.
Yep.
But
yeah, it's crazy. It's very usable skills, and it goes beyond just the reconnaissance world. You can use a lot of the stuff we talked about beyond that. And I think that's why it's such a power to go out and train for, because you're learning so many skill sets doing it. I mean, everything from as simple as water procurement to, patrolling to logbooks and digging good fighting positions and all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? So, and the farther we get into this, once we get into urban, which is going to be the next episode, that'll open up another door of like, there's a lot of skill sets learned from urban reconnaissance as well, because in order to get in a building, you got to know how to get in a building. and how to clear a building and all that stuff. So I think it's an incredibly useful skill and something that is well worth it. And it's very obtainable to do with a fairly small group of guys. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Cool, man. Well, does that pretty much wrap it up?
Dude, that wraps it up. I've never talked so much in a single podcast, dude.
Dude, you're making up for all the other ones that you have your little...
Yeah, people are like, why is this guy even here?
No.
No.
No, it's awesome, man. It's really good, solid stuff. If you have any further questions, definitely feel free to email us, minutemen.initiative@gmail.com. We have our Instagram now for the podcast specifically. We're going to be adding some content to that shortly. We've been doing a lot of video editing and a lot of different kinds of marketing style things that need to be kind of established before we get it out there. I wasn't even going to launch it and let people know about it until we had all that done, but a bunch of people found it and then just started following it. So I guess it got recommended to people, which makes sense. But we also have our business page, Dynamic Defense Solutions, or dynamic.defense.solutions on Instagram and Facebook. I think they're linked. They pretty much kind of everything that's on Instagram gets posted to Facebook. And check out our website. You know, those are all ways you can contact us. Our YouTube is finally getting some love, and we're going to be adding some stuff to it soon. We've got a lot of content we've been building and creating for that. So with that, all that being said, if you want to help us out, go follow us in all those areas. Also shop the web store, hopefully going to be getting some stuff added. I've been focused on the social media side of stuff. I haven't had time to add stuff to the website, but we've got a bunch of modern Minuteman style products that are going to be getting added. There's always holsters and stuff you can grab too. We make some super sick holsters, but yeah, so we will be we'll be making updates there. A lot of content coming specific to this. But yeah, if you have any questions in the meantime, always reach out. We'll try to help you and get you in the right direction, because I think this is it's complicated stuff, but it's super important, and I think it's a very good skill for the modern Minuteman, and it's something that if you practice it often and practice it with your team, it'll help you figure out a lot of other stuff too. It's good skills that bleed over into a lot of other areas. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, we'll chat you guys next time.